Let's roll the rock.
All right. We are good to go.
Okay, heary, the Protection and Policy meeting for August 12th, 2019 is now in session. I'll take a motion to amend our agenda by...
Roll call.
Did I miss that again? I did miss that again, sorry. Roll call, let's do a roll call. Alder Steuer.
Here.
Alder Vanderleest. Here. Alder Stevens. Here. And Alder Scannell is here. We're all here. Hail, hail, the gang's all here. I'll take a motion to amend our agenda.
Motion to amend.
We'll put 9, 13, and 14 after item 7. Okay, is there a motion to...
Second.
A motion by Alder Vanderleest to amend the agenda, seconded by Alder Steuer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Now I'll take a motion to accept our agenda as amended by Alder Vanderleest.
Second.
Seconded by Alder Steuer. All in favor?
Aye.
That carries unanimously. So, our minutes, can I take those all at once, or do I have to do each one?
We have to do each one.
Each one. Okay, I will take a motion to approve our minutes for the July 8th, 2019 Protection and Policy meeting. So moved by Alder Vanderleest, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes have been approved. Those are good minutes. Approval of the minutes for July 9th, 2019 Protection and Policy meeting. Alder Vanderleest? Second by Alder Stevens, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those are also good minutes. Approval of the minutes of the July 12th, 2019 Protection and Policy meeting.
So moved.
Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, our minutes have been approved. Let's get on to the regular business if you're ready.
I am ready.
Number 1, consideration with possible action on a change of agent at the Woods Golf Operations LLC at 530 Erie Road. Staff.
Law Department has no objections.
Please concur.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
By Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and I should say, before we get any further, everything we do here, unless I say otherwise, is just a recommendation to council. Council has the final say, unless they've given us the final say, which they haven't with this one. And that meets next Tuesday, 6 o'clock at the room next door. So, with that, let us move on to item 2, consideration with possible action on an application for an available Class B combination license for Barney's LLC at 201 North Washington Street with a licensed premises description as 1,350 square feet selling space, first floor, 220 square feet storage space upstairs, subject to the approval of the proper authorities. Previously licensed as Cover 2 Sports Bar and Lounge, LLC. For this one, we do have the final authority as granted us by the council October 1st.
Yes.
Until October 1st.
Yes, so
Yeah.
this is for an available license. We currently have 4 availables. Law Department has no objection. We do want to note that it is in the downtown moratorium, but they qualify for an exemption because they applied within 60 days of the termination of the prior licensee's lease for the premise. So,
And who was that? The previous?
Cover 2.
cover 2.
Okay, thank you. I got that.
Please
Motion to
concur.
approve.
Wait, let's, our honored boys in blue over here,
Please concur.
please concur.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Alder Vanderleest. Second by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Next.
Number 3, consideration with possible action on an application for a Class B combination license for Ramis River Run LLC at 324 North Roosevelt with a licensed premises description as a bar area, men's and women's bathrooms, storage, security room, basement, coolers in basement, subject to the approval of the proper authorities. Currently licensed as Karen's Pub LLC. We also have final authority on this one.
Yes, so Law Department also has no objections on this application. We do also want to note that this premise is in the old Maine moratorium, but they qualify for an exemption as it's a surrender from the prior licensee. It's also directly across from a school, which would typically be prohibited under our ordinances, but it also qualifies for that exemption. In this case, because the premise was licensed as such with a liquor license prior to March 25th, 2000, so they are allowed to continue on.
Please concur.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good day.
You.
Good to go?
Number 4, consideration with possible action and an application for a Class B combination license for the Bragan Bar LLC at 2019 North Washington Street with a licensed premises as Mexican restaurant, 2 floors plus basement area, subject to the approval of the proper authorities, previously licensed as El Presidente LLC. Staff?
Staff has no objections. This premise is also in the downtown moratorium, and they qualify for an exemption as it will operate as a restaurant per their security plan.
Please concur.
It's a senior district.
Yeah. Motion to approve. I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Alder Vanderleest. Any,
I guess I just have one question. Because of the situation we had with the previous tenant, I'm just wondering if there's anything with that at all, with El Presidente.
No, when we did
This
our
is a
bar, when we did our bar stipulation plan, we spoke to the owner. It is specifically going to be a Mexican restaurant on the first level. He made comment that the second level would kind of be like the Gather on Broadway that would be rented out if people wanted to host events or parties there, but he assured us it is strictly a Mexican restaurant. And it has no association with any previous people from El Presidente.
Okay, good, thanks.
good?
Yep.
Motion to approve by Alder, no, by me, yes, and seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thanks, Chris.
Item 5, consideration of possible action on a request by Richard Craniums at 840 South Broadway on temporarily extend the licensed premises to the outside parking lot on August 31st from high noon to 10 p.m. for a fundraising event. Staff?
Water Department has no objections. We would defer to PD if they have any questions.
We would just like the standard to make sure there's security or fencing outside to make sure alcohol's not coming or going.
Motion to open the floor?
Second.
Motion by Alder Stevens to open the floor, seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Floor is now open. Please come forward, state your name and address. And are the pads up there? Please fill out a pad before you leave. Oh, she did?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Hi.
You heard the police concerns? If you
Yep.
could tell us.
Yeah, we'll have a fenced-in area, and then we have security as well. So we'll have somebody watching all day. That's basically it.
Anything else?
Nope, we're satisfied.
Anything you care to add?
No, it's the same for the next one too. I don't think
Okay.
It makes a difference.
All right, yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to close the floor. By Alder Vanderleest, seconded by Alder Steuer. All in favor?
Aye.
What's your wish?
Motion to approve.
Motion to
Second.
approve by Alder Vanderleest, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Item 6. Oh, are we ready?
Yes.
Consideration with possible action on a request by Richard Craniums at 840 South Broadway to temporarily extend their licensed premises to the outside parking lot on September 5th from high noon to 10 p.m. for a customer appreciation tailgate party. Staff?
Water Department has no objections.
Based on what you said on item 5, we have no objections either.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Alder Stevens, second by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Item number 7.
Yes.
Consideration with possible action on request by Brewski's on Broadway at 1100 South Broadway to temporarily extend their licensed premises to the parking lot on September 21st, September 28th, and December 1st. Staff?
Water Department has no objections.
Once again, the police would want to make sure they have security and fencing outside.
Someone here for
Motion
this?
to open the floor. Somebody's here.
Someone here for this? Uh-oh. No one's here for this.
It's time
It
sensitive.
states it in the letter.
Luciana Bryant, we
Well,
are
it's just a request.
proper fencing, and we'll have proper security personnel for the event.
Pleased to satisfy them.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Alder Stevens.
Second.
Seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. We are on to item 9.
Yes, on to item 9.
9. Discussion with possible action on a request by Alder Dwarf, which reads, I believe that steps must be taken to ensure that infrastructure projects, including but not limited to those that the wheel tax will fund, must be chosen very carefully and be placed into a capital improvement plan. I am requesting that PMP develop policy with the help of DPW, legal, and other appropriate staff. This policy must be developed so that the special interests and requests of individual alders do not subvert the process of choosing the projects that have been carefully researched by city staff as being appropriate for placement in a 5-year plan. Parameters for choosing streets are to be repaired, reconstructed, or resurfaced, as well as other infrastructure improvements should be clearly identified within this policy, which was referred to staff at a previous Protection and Policy Committee meeting. Staff? Or Barb, did you have any? Okay, staff?
I believe Director Grenier is here to speak on this item.
We have provided for you in your packet a copy of the criteria that are currently utilized by the Department of Public Works for selection of infrastructure projects. Most notable among these are the street resurfacing and reconstruction that is predicated primarily by street pavement ratings, which are conducted in every other year in odd-numbered years. We do attempt to leverage those projects against the sanitary and storm sewer utilities to maximize the amount of work that can be done and minimize the expenditure. We also do coordinate that with both Green Bay Water Utility to coordinate with their plans on infrastructure upgrades, as well as coordinating with other known utilities in areas where we know that we have major utility upgrades. Target goal is about 16,000 linear feet of resurfacing in an annual year, and the target for reconstruction runs between 6,000 and 10,000 linear feet. Obviously, that is somewhat dictated by the amount of financing that is available. We have identified that there are certain instances where streets cannot be resurfaced and they automatically become candidates for reconstruction. Most notably among those are where the base has already failed and we have to do complete base reconstruction, or if it is what we refer to as a concrete-based street, which is an old concrete street that has already been paved over. We similarly have some situations where streets are normally candidate for resurfacing, but they've already been paved into the gutter, and by resurfacing them, we would wind up with surface ponding and lack of drainage. When we have something like that, the only thing that we can do is reconstruct the curb and gutter as well, and that's a reconstruct. Although it wasn't explicitly stated in Alder Dorf's communication, we did take the opportunity to further describe how a utility improvement program is funded. That is our sanitary and storm-only projects. Prior to about 5 years ago, those projects simply did not exist within the city of Green Bay. If we did a utility project, it was directly tied to a street project. Here we are utilizing funding solely derived from sanitary or stormwater utility to drive those projects that will make a bigger improvement above and beyond what we can do with our road reconstructor resurfacing program alone. As our bridge division has come along, we provided you with some description on how bridge projects are selected. Traffic signal repair program has kind of come into its own over the last 5 to 6 years, and what we target there, essentially, it's two intersections a year. That comes out to about $250,000, and we are trying to coordinate that along corridors to make corridor timing and corridor progression work better. So we don't just pick two intersections at random throughout the course of the city, or we don't necessarily go to the two oldest. We will look at the University Avenue corridor in an effort to maximize or enhance travel times along the corridor. In recent years, we have been working in the core of the downtown, improving traffic flow along Walnut Street, and this year we utilized the two intersections, leveraging that money against the money that came in from the state and federal governments on Webster Avenue to upgrade and enhance the signals at Webster and Radisson and Webster University. Last thing that we've identified is our parking ramp repair program. That is about a $650,000 a year program to enhance and repair and keep the longevity of our existing parking ramps, and that is solely funded through the parking division, which is an enterprise, or a special revenue fund. So we put a pretty good description of how the projects are selected. If you have any questions.
Yep.
Well, thanks for coming in, Steve. You mentioned 16,000 linear feet per year. So is that, with that being said, is it still, it would be nice to know what is being done at this time, or is this all related on the wheel tax and other things? I'd like to know where we're at so far this year as far as being up to the 16,000.
We're in about that neighborhood.
Okay. Is there a list of the roads and things that have been done? Do we have any kind of?
That have been, nothing is complete this year.
Nothing
We're
is
in the middle of
complete.
construction.
All right, well, what I'm saying is, what projects are going on right now that we have access to see what is being done?
We approved
What-
them.
We approved, okay, so it was an INS, we had a copy of all those roads some time ago, correct?
They came to council, correct? We approved maintenance on, or the,
Well, just,
When we bring the capital improvement program, we simply have a line item that says resurfacing. Yes, I do have a list of the streets that are included in the
I'm sorry, yeah.
resurfacing program that's available for anybody. Absolutely.
I'll just look at that. All right, thanks.
but what did we approve at council?
The capital improvement program, which will individually list out reconstruct streets, but it's in, the
Just the reconstruct.
resurfacing street, resurfacing program is just a single line item.
Okay, okay.
Right.
Alderdorf?
Sure. I just feel like I should come up.
I think you should.
That's
Yes,
the
you
rule.
should.
So I'd like to address this to law. Is this doing, this is a nice statement, and it's a nice description, is this doing what I want it to do? To make sure that, like, someone at an Improving the Services Committee cannot just go, oh, yeah, you got this list here, and this is what you prioritized, DPW, but I want this street done in my district. Does this, that was my intent, that it doesn't seem like it's in policy form. Is it in policy form?
Well, go
I'm
ahead.
asking legal.
Yep.
So there's a couple of different ways that we could do it. I think that the most, the way that has the most ability to prevent things from being added would be to do this by ordinance. So we establish we would basically take the policy that Dr. Rectorinier has created and put that into a ordinance format. That's really the only difference, to make it binding so that there is no opportunity for somebody to take it and stick it in, or stick in projects and go serve them at that time. It would literally be an ordinance to do it. Otherwise, staff's direction is to follow through with the policies that we put in place. They can be overridden, but so can ordinance. Ordinance just takes more time to repeal.
But this is definitely the format that we use for policy within the city.
Policies don't have to be written. The policies are just what we adopt.
So what I might call practice is what the city calls policy, and ordinances are what is pretty prescribed. I guess I'm used to policy being the way we do things, or practice is the way we do things. Policy is the written rules around it.
So there's nothing that requires us to have our policies in writing. It can be as simple as a practice, or it could be codified as a ordinance. What we do generally is when we have policies in-house, we will generally write them down. They're not something that's taken and adopted because they're adopted at the staff level. That's one of our charges, is when we are given the authority to act under ordinances, the expectation that is given to us through state law is that we have the authority to adopt policies for our own functions, which means that when we come up with something like this, that's what we're operating under until told otherwise.
So going to DPW, do you feel like this will allow you to do the areas that you think most need to be done?
We do. This was written consistent with other policies like the long grass, weeds, unmanaged growth policy, with our street terrace policy, and our street repair policy.
Okay.
So it's, the format and how it's being handled is consistent with past practice on other policies that have been adopted.
Okay.
And again, I think the policy as opposed to an ordinance, one of the things that we identified very early on in this policy statement was that we do have, it's not all inclusive because items such as surface transportation block grant funding may alter that, and we need to be able to be responsive to that. And I don't know that we can necessarily have that same flexibility or responsiveness to alternate funding sources if it was under ordinance, or it may become a little bit more cumbersome under ordinance.
Okay, I'm satisfied then. Thank you.
Okay. So, Director Green, you're not concerned about Alder trying to stick their fingers into the street pie and?
No, I'm not. Alders always have been and continue to be welcome to submit their recommendations for consideration. But whereas the council makes a decision to have a resurfacing program, it always has been at the discretion of the Department of Public Works to select the individual streets that comprise that program. What we are doing here at Alderdorf's request is providing an objective, fact-based, financially responsible description of how we are already selecting the projects, with the anticipation that the council is going to look at that and agree that this makes sense and this is the way it should be done.
Question?
I got a quick question, Steve. I think, some of it, there were some concerns we had some problems with water on the lift station on the Broadway area, and I think we got the lift station in the works. I think that was some of the, that's some of the concern that, the water problem was bad in them certain areas, and I think they did address it with the lift station, and they're doing some work on North Broadway, I think, to address all that. And I think there was another issue on the, over by Bellevue Street where they had some flooding and things in that area right off of, I think that was kind of like some of the, in other words, the residents wanted action, and, some of the alders in those districts might have, been concerned about, as you well know, all the problems that we had with the water, with the flooding. I think that's, in other words, you guys are addressing those, trying to address those kind of issues, and, you have staff available when they have they know when the flooding's coming, and I think that, that was a good, in other words, initiative that went forward to try to help the rest of those districts. I think that was, a big plus. And I think you're not asleep at the wheel on what's going on the flooding.
Mm-hmm.
If we can get the floods, in other words, get the flooding, in other words, if the lift station isn't working, that, in other words, that's basically what they're asking for, and I think you guys are trying to address that, if I'm correct on that.
Yes.
And I don't know how it's been in the last, since we've had some of these last storms, what it's all been like. I know that, some areas in my district, they had a lot of trees down and stuff like that. I mean, I see the guys out working, forestry's been, I think, owning it pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Department of Public Works is the same way as for different things. So in other words, on, one other question on University Avenue, or on Webster Avenue, is that project going to be completed as far as?
Oh, but that really is kind of.
But it's off the cuff, I know.
Yes, it is. That's on
Okay,
schedule.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Just two things from me. One is I wanted to make sure that, we've done some transitioning here from special assessments and surveying streets to see if we're going to do the reconstructions or the resurfacing, and that's all behind us now. All the streets are on an equal footing. We're starting scratch, looking at every street for its condition.
We always have.
In the past, if people didn't want their streets, for whatever reason, redone, they were put at the bottom of the list, correct? In the past.
Yes.
But now, everybody's on an equal footing?
If they've been moved down, some of those streets are still moved down. And the thought process behind that is because that street came up, it was due up, it was recommended, and people spoke out, and the council agreed with that. If you spoke out that you didn't want that project done, and let's not forget, when those public hearings were held, nobody wanted to be assessed, even the folks who had the project completed.
Right.
Everybody understands that. The decision that was made that was affirmed by the council was not to proceed with the project. Taking everything into consideration, the project was not needed at that time. If the project wasn't needed, it wasn't needed. So it falls behind those who are patiently waiting their turn to come up.
So we haven't looked at all the streets and done another grading of all the streets?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so,
Every-
but the ones that have gone down, that were put down, if they're as bad as something that's ahead of them, or, well, let's say if they're worse, would they bump up?
If they're worse, then they'll bump up.
If they're as bad, they'll take their weight.
They may have to wait behind another that hasn't had its first shot yet.
Right, I could, all right. But that makes sense if they're this, if they're equal. Yep, okay.
Steve, I was just going to ask, I know that the PACE report, we have numbers for the 2015 and 2017 years, and I heard through the grapevine or what have you, that 2019 is also being worked on? Is that
It's
true?
being worked on right now, yes.
Okay, and is there any kind of timeline for that, or it depends? As far as completion for something like that?
Soon.
Soon? I guess I can accept that. All right.
Anything else from anyone else? Then I do, Alder Weary sent me an email. He's made some comments on a couple of our items, and he asked me to read them into the record. He did so on this item. And he writes, I am supportive of staff creating priority lists. However, I believe we should never tie the hands of the elected body to make decisions. If the body feels priority streets projects should change, then that is their elected right to do so. The list should be the suggested project list, which is kind of exactly the opposite of what we're doing. Everyone seems to be in agreement. But that is his feeling on it. I think that's kind of the feeling that kind of prompted Alder Dorf's communication. I don't know that he's in a majority. I think we need to not make this a political football. That was the whole purpose of the communication, Alder Dorf. But he asked me to put it in the record, so it's there. Any other comments or questions or anything? Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. I believe the proper motion would be receive and place on file
So moved.
by Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That is now received and placed on file. We are on to, let me get back to everything here.
Number 13.
Number 13. And we're ready?
Yes.
Discussion with possible action on general ordinance numbers 28-18 and ordinance to repeal and recreate section 6.15 Green Bay Municipal Code relating to special events previously discussed at the October 8th, 2018 Protection and Policy Meeting. Staff?
So we have, we had a few meetings last year, earlier this year, with some special event holders and heard some of their concerns. And so I would say the changes that we made that were fairly major, and Lindsay Mather is here to discuss some minor changes if you'd like to go there, is to remove the matrices for both police and fire. So there is not going to be a specific standard for X amount of people in an event would demand X amount of police or X amount of fire. The other change that we made was to allow special event organizers to hire private security with the approval of the police chief or his or her designee. There is no replacement for fire services. So those are the changes that I think caused some concerns last year. And so those are the changes that we made to address those concerns. As I had stated last year, I think the great thing about this ordinance is that it essentially matches the kinds of events that we have in our community with a better definition and then with a better streamlining of services. We also have room for a special event coordinator to do this work, and as I had said, last year that was a member of the law department. The person who is doing the special events coordinating is the mayor's community relations assistant, Jared Vogeltons. So that is part of his prescribed duties. So we do have a designated person here in City Hall. And those are the high-level changes.
I got a question for
Yes,
Alter
please.
Johnson. You're involved with this district, your district on Broadway. How is this, does this seem to be okay as far as your,
Yeah, maybe, I guess maybe, if it's okay, I'll just maybe share a few comments that I have that should probably answer that question for you. I do want to thank staff and Celestine and the hard work they put into this. I think, I've looked at this, I've talked with a couple of other organizations that host special events that had an opportunity to look at it, and I know Downtown Green Bay is here, I'll let them share any feedback or comments that they may have. I think this is a really good modification. There were only a few things that I thought, not necessarily that I disagreed with, but I thought could maybe use some further clarification. And so unless there's, any amount of time sensitivity to this, I would maybe at least request that we hold this item until next month, or refer back to staff, I should say, just to make some of those modifications, but I guess that's up to discretion of the committee. I'm
We have
happy
to possibly make them right now.
But we could, sure. I'm just not sure if legal would be ready to provide the exact verbiage that would go along with that, but I'm happy, I'm probably, 6, 7, 8 things,
We
maybe?
got 3 lawyers here, I think we,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna be
Look,
verbiage.
it's up to you guys, and it's up to, I guess, the committee, and I would look for
Why don't
staff.
we start and see how it works, and if it's not working out, we can refer it to staff, and staff can,
On behalf of law, we've got a ton of ordinances that we want to bring out to you guys, and so if we can get this one through, yes, we will do whatever we need to
Okay,
make it happen.
so, all right, well, I'm looking under definitions, under large events. And actually, this would apply to all of them, where we indicate the size or the number of attendees. The question that I would pose is that, when we say, for example, 5,000 attendees, is that at one time or over a period of time? Because many special events in our community, it's over a period of time, right? So hypothetically,
One event versus-
farmer's market, we say 10,000 people come to the event, but there's never 10,000 there at one time. So and that number might apply, large events might apply to that example in all instances anyway, but my point is that it's just, I don't know if that requires clarification. I'm looking to legal maybe for some advice on that.
This
Or
is part-
maybe even to staff, or what your intent was.
I have
The
a question.
intent was to, this came up last year. Oh, and by the way, I did send this ordinance out last week to a bunch of folks, so, to make sure that they were informed.
were there any responses back?
I did not get any response.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
And I was here Friday too, at
Organizations.
1 o'clock, so for folks to get in touch. So the intent was to really determine, well, in what sense do we have 5,000, 10,000 people, or 1,000 people converging on an area? I think it's a conversation. Really what that does is it does talk about services. It also talks about that number directly impacts fees. So
So if there's 5,000 there at any one time,
Now, that's
that
the
would be
large
hard to
event.
determine.
Medium event is 500 to 1,000, right? So
right, right.
it might even impact
Medium
those
is
categories a
1,000
little
to
more.
5,000.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
So it would be hard for anyone to determine. So at this hour, you had 2,500 people, and at this hour, you had 7,000 people. I think the idea is, what do you generally expect over the course of your entire event?
Event.
Mhm.
Okay,
And we're not going and counting people, we're not
Right,
taking.
right, right.
We're taking the word of the event organizer to say, we will have about 5,000 people, we will have about 1,500 people. That's
And
the
it's,
purpose.
from an event organizer perspective, I can tell you half the time, it's just a guess anyway.
Correct.
We don't know what's gonna come. So I just didn't know, again, from a staff perspective, if you wanted clarity on that, doesn't impact, I don't think, event organizers, other than, like you said, the permit fee. But I just, if you want an opportunity to clarify that, I thought I would call that out. Okay, looking under page 3, under permit required. And this is maybe just a point of clarification. Do events on private property, are they required to secure a permit?
They are not a special event.
Okay, does that need to be clarified anywhere in this ordinance?
The definition of special event is at the top. Special event, an athletic event, ceremony, demonstration, march, pageant, blah, 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 which interferes with the normal flow or regulation of traffic upon the streets, sidewalks, and the rights of way, or customary use of parks or other public grounds.
Okay, so you feel that it adequately
Yes.
sums it up? Okay, that's fine with me then. 60 days to submit for large, medium, or small event. I mean, sometimes, so, you know, I even look at like correct me if I'm wrong, but if you are taking out a picnic permit, you are automatically considered a large event?
No. Oh, in terms of, right, in terms of the kind of services that would be necessary.
So if you're going to serve alcohol?
So you could be a medium event and have a picnic permit,
Go back
but you
to
can't be a
the-
simple event and have a picnic permit.
Okay.
You could be a small other event and have a picnic permit.
And state law prescribes that 15 days, correct me if I'm wrong, is what's required to submit for a picnic permit?
But the picnic permit and the special event permit are not the same thing.
I understand that. My point being is that I believe it says in here somewhere that those permits must be secured in advance. So does 60 days become the new standard for applying for picnic permits? Or is it possible to secure a permit 60 days in advance and submit for your picnic permit later?
Lindsay's looking.
It's fun when you rewrite a whole ordinance.
Yeah.
You're enjoying this.
I think you need a permit for this.
And maybe while she's looking that up, I would just make a statement that particularly for small events that still want to serve, that want to pull out a picnic permit, 60 days severely inhibits an organization's ability to host pop-up events, which generally aren't designed to be large-scale events. So I will just throw that out there for the committee's consideration. And I understand late
So we
fees can be
take-
applied,
We
but
can take late applications, late fee may apply.
the late fee proportionately
assess.
becomes
Yes.
a much bigger impact when you're talking about small pop-up events. Just something to consider.
I did, pardon the interruption, I did find the reference. So I think what you're referring to, there's I don't even know what page I'm on.
Is it application for A?
It says page 4, subsection 11, whether alcoholic beverages will be served and or consumed, etc., and whether all necessary licenses have been obtained.
So can we change that? So that way, because otherwise, the way that I'm reading this is we'll have to secure the picnic permit before we even have the event permit.
Well,
No. So the way it says is you're just indicating whether or not the license has been obtained. You can state that it will be applied for, and that's just one of the considerations in granting it.
Okay, if you feel that that can be done after the fact, then I'm satisfied with that.
Yes.
But how does that affect the pop-up events then? Are we
It'll
still-
make it harder to do.
Pop-up events can't have liquor licenses, I mean, 50 days is, that's it, right? And then 60 days, a pop-up event is not a definition in the ordinance. It's by the size of the activity is how we determine the category of an event. And so,
So if the pop-up event isn't expected to have a large...
Generally speaking, I can't guarantee that.
Right, you can't
right?
guarantee.
I was
but you
wondering
could-
about- Some could be bigger than others.
I mean, essentially, it sounds to me like you can still do it on a shorter time frame. You'll just have to pay the late fee.
potential.
I wonder if we could make some language to add pop-up events.
I don't think you need to do that.
No.
Um,
I would not
Yeah.
recommend that.
You don't want a pop-up event, pop
I
up
mean,
into that?
they're great. I would not recommend it. You know, when we went through this whole paradigm,
Mhm.
it was, like I said, classifying an event by how big are you, where are you, and what are you doing, not how fast it comes. or the necessary character of the event. So we're not saying there's really any difference between a farmer's market or a race.
Right, right.
And I'm fine with it. I think it was just a question more than anything. One thing that I did not see addressed in here or clarified, and please correct me if I missed it, but series-based events, are they considered one permit?
One.
And does that need to be clarified in here? Because while we may have that understanding right now, that may not be an understanding with a staff or a council 10 years from now. And I would maybe urge us that we actually dictate that a series-based event can qualify as one permit. So I would
Are you
ask.
serious?
Yes, I am serious. So I would ask the committee for that consideration. And I'll let you maybe take up discussion on it after I've.
Well,
Good, staff,
Yeah, the intention was not to make a series either contiguously, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or every Friday. It was not to make those events any different in terms of charges or in terms of how we would classify the event.
Right.
If the event moves around, that's a little different, and then basically what you're doing is you're creating new events
Mhm.
that are connected thematically, but if you go from, Main Street to Mason Street to Light Park, those are essentially 3 different events.
right. But do we need to add some language to make that clear with series events?
And again, it's clear with our staff and council that we have now, but it would not necessarily be clear with future leadership.
I don't see any issue with us adding it. The language of the application does state that for founding in context number B3 states the dates of the special event, but there is no issue with this adding language to clarify that, including a series of events.
Can we add that then?
Item E talks about a cancellation fee. I would just pose the question of why we need to charge a cancellation fee if we've already charged for the upfront event permit fee.
Because we want to discourage organizers from creating an event and then canceling it. This is not a weather-related issue.
somebody else could have been in there.
Okay, and I understand that, but I can assure you that no event organizer ever coordinates an event with the intent to cancel it. And I don't think that the cancellation fees as laid out would actually serve the purpose of being a deterrent.
We have had cancellation.
I know, but I'm saying I don't think anybody ever intends to do it. There are things that happened, a band could cancel, I mean, just any number of things could happen, right? That could prompt an organizer to want to cancel an event. You don't generate as much interest, you don't sell as many tickets. And it just seems to me that if we've paid the event fee up front, what costs are we incurring as a city to cancel it on the back end?
What kind of costs might those be? Is there any number?
They're minimal, which again, it's, I mean, if we're gonna charge on a small event, for example, it's a $15 cancellation
No.
fee. We're gonna spend hundreds of dollars in staff time tracking down a $15 cancellation fee. I would say just let it be done, but
So Celestine, how many of these, you said some events have canceled over time since you've been here. How many have you seen that have canceled?
To my recollection, only 2 that have
Two?
canceled, not weather-related. That's not.
Right,
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 right.
right.
Weather-related shouldn't be a problem.
No, that's not what we're
a problem.
talking about.
Right.
but that's not
So that'd
necessarily
be
clear.
$30 we're talking about, correct? $30?
And
Total,
staff- and
the two?
Staff time too.
Right, I mean, are we spending more money?
Yeah, I would agree with that. So Attorney Mather is saying we should, how about if we change it from will to may?
So the cancellation fee section right now says a cancellation fee will be charged for any events canceled within 15 days, and it doesn't provide any kind of exception for weather or anything like that. So if we change the will to a may, then something like a weather event wouldn't require charging the fee.
So what?
Yeah, I'm still just, I mean, you know, and of course, as you guys know, I have 2 hats on here right now. I'm still just questioning as an alder why we even charge a fee. I don't really care as an event organizer because the amount is so negligible. But as an alder, it's just, I think the staff time that goes into chasing down a cancellation fee
If it's
actually puts us
$15.
upside down.
But it's the whole invoice, so we invoice everything,
Yeah.
so it'll just be added to the invoice.
So it'd be
About
$15 added to the invoice?
Absolutely.
So,
Ah,
Okay, and again, I defer to the committee, it's just something I wanted to bring up. The last maybe question or that I would bring up is under appeal procedures.
Before we move off this though,
Yeah, you wanna
okay,
finish
so
that?
that language isn't in there, that the invoice, that they're invoiced,
What
that
number
that's
is
just
that?
given,
That's our
or?
process, so we invoice we don't ask for money up front. We,
Okay.
we invoice the special event
That's gonna be-
organizer for the
okay.
fees, including if there were fireworks, we would invoice that special event hazard fee.
Okay. All right.
And then the last item is page 7, item number 10, under appeal procedure. An applicant may appeal the denial of a special event permit. When I was reading this, there was kind of like no in between, either it's accepted or it's denied. And then you can appeal to protection policy on the denial of the permit, but it's not clear whether or not you could use the committee as a place to appeal certain contingencies or restrictions that might be placed on your application. So I don't know, quite frankly, how often that happens, but I just wanted to at least open that up for discussion, that if the city, for example, staff were to say, you have to have barricades here, and the event organizer says, no, that's not really necessary, or if they say you have to have 80 police officers, and we're like, no, we only think we need, 2. I mean, there's no other place to appeal that, so I just wanted to put that in front of the committee for their
I
consideration.
thought there was a process to appeal, wasn't there? Didn't that,
No,
did
denial.
people have appealed in the past?
So the purpose of the appeals is not to substitute the decision of the committee. The committee's the one that's tasked with making those determinations based on the expertise and everything that's available to them. And so really what you're doing is bringing forward an opportunity to be heard when they've been aggrieved. Now, allowing somebody to continue forward with a special event under conditions that promote a higher level of safety than say the event organizer was originally anticipating isn't necessarily an aggrievement, because they're still allowed to proceed with their event. Instead, the only time they really be aggrieved is if they are prohibited from proceeding with it, such as through a denial.
And that they can agree to the whole thing, any part of it. If they're denied the
Well, sure.
permit, then they're denied.
Yeah, that you can, but
Right.
again, if there were any pieces of city staff recommendations that the event organizer did not agree with, there's no place to aggrieve, is that the word? Aggrieve, the
Well,
legal term? There's no place to do that, so.
Because you haven't been aggrieved unless your application has been denied.
Denied, yeah, because the event still goes forward. If, let's say, the barricade issue,
Mhm.
you're still going forward with your event. You're not being stopped, your permit hasn't been pulled.
Yeah, but I
from
think practice would suggest, and Celestine, correct me if I'm wrong, because you have done a lot of these permits. Practice would suggest that a lot of times organizers may submit a permit, city staff may come back and say, well, how about we change this or change that? You know what I mean? So oftentimes it's not just and I actually prefer that process, not to get a flat out denial that it's, if you make these modifications, then we'll approve the permit.
Right, and if they don't approve a permit, then you can appeal it. It's only if you would agree with it and go forward, and then you change your mind, but then you're still going forward with your permit.
So what you're suggesting is that you just don't agree with modifications, and then you get the denial, and then you bring it to the committee.
No, that's the
But would that,
Yeah.
The grievance has to occur because you were, in order for a person to be aggrieved, it can't be because they weren't receptive to what they received. It's
Mhm.
because they were denied something by the committee. And so the whole purpose of this is to put together the people who are supposed to be tasked with making those decisions, like PD, fire departments, safety, risk, and that stuff. And so it's going to be based on the standards that are established by those different departments. And so when one of those departments says, what you're proposing is inadequate, that's not an grievance, it's really it's a correction to a permit. So telling you may proceed with these conditions is not a denial. And so you're not aggrieved, you're just provided a different set of standards than
so if you
sought.
say though that I don't agree to those modifications, your permit would be denied, and then you could appeal it,
The permit is still granted.
So you
Permit's
can,
still granted, you're just
just
choosing
with
not to move
conditions.
forward.
Correct.
Okay, so at this point then, there's no way to appeal conditions?
Nope.
Okay, so that's the piece that I would ask the committee for their consideration on.
But, as I understand it,
I would not recommend that.
right, but if, as I understand it, okay, they don't agree to the conditions, they still got the permit. If they do the event the way they want to do it, what's the consequence?
Oh, then they're in violation of the permit, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. Would that be aggrieved?
No, that's just a permit violation.
That's just a, they would have no
That could
recourse
result
to
in
say.
Muni court. That could
Okay.
result in a citation.
So let's also remember that we're talking about public assets.
Uh-huh.
We're talking about the street, talking about parks, and DPW, fire, police, they have the ability to say,
Yeah.
we would love to have this event. This is the way that, in which we feel it keeps your event safe as well as the community safe.
Yeah.
There have been a number of events that have taken place in the last 2 weeks. I think remind us all that when police and fire and DPW are present and giving their good opinion, their wisdom as to how an event can go off well, I think that event organizers should listen.
Right. And as a hypothetical, I kind of hear what you're saying, but in practice, I mean, is an event really, an organizer really going to go against what the police and the fire say? I mean, is that happened where there's
No,
been
I
an
think
issue with?
We work with event organizers to make sure that, and this is the whole reason why the matrices have been removed. We had lots of conversation around this because we wanted to make sure that it is the cost of services are reasonable for the event organizers and also keeping the event safe for the attendees as well as the rest of the public.
And I can appreciate that, but I will tell you from personal experience that there have been times where we've been told as event organizers, absolutely not, that will never happen, and it goes through months of frustration and negotiation to finally get to the point where we were in the first place. So I don't feel that there's a need to call out specific examples, other than to say that sometimes it does not work flawlessly.
You don't recommend it though, for what, why wouldn't you recommend doing this?
A few reasons. The first and foremost is there's potential for liability. So if the council decides to substitute its own decisions for that of the people who are tasked with this, then should the worst happen, I think there would be a potential. So we would have quasi judicial immunity, we'd have legislative immunity. But when we are substituting our decisions for those of people who have the knowledge and wherewithal to make
The
those
expertise.
decisions, then we're creating more of a situation where we do have the potential for exposure. Second, it kind of murkies the water between the separation of powers, which is legislative where you set policy, and executive where you are carrying things out. So here you guys are telling them to create a special events ordinance, and that you want them to, follow certain standards. And so, which would be to make sure that PD's on board, make sure that fire's on board, make sure that DPW, safety, everybody's on board, unless, and in this instance, it would be unless the person disagrees with it, which the whole purpose of having the separation of powers is you have one body who has the authority to make sure that those decisions as far as what the policies should be, and then you have the other entity which is actually carrying through and deciding, they're the subject matter experts who are actually tasked with carrying these out. And so having a situation where PD is no longer the body that's telling people, here's how many people you need for a safety plan, you no longer have fire department telling people how to keep people safe. That's a complete blurring of the lines, which I would not recommend you engage in.
So would simply having an appeal procedure for the denial of a permit not create an inconsistent perspective there? Because you are still then allowing the legislative side of the government be able to override the denial of a permit, correct?
Denials are a specific set of standards. They are limited to mistake of fact, mistake of law, whether or not it is, what's what I'm looking for, arbitrary and capricious, whether or not it was, I forget, there's one more standard. But either way, the point is, it's not just a whole new fact finding. Make your case and hope that you convince somebody else that
these standards aren't necessary. It's explain to them why it is that you should not have been denied this but were.
Okay.
That's the whole purpose of it.
And I'm okay with that. I mean, for the committee's perspective, the one thing that maybe I would request from staff is an education of all departments about the importance of the quality of life in our community for special events, because one statement I will say is that some departments are more receptive than others when it comes to special events in our community. So, that's all I got. Thank you. Unless there's questions.
Alder Sawyer, did you have something? or-
Well, I guess going back to it, the appeal procedure, and Brian, you can stay up here maybe for staff. The applicant may appeal the denial of a special event permit to the Protection and Policy Committee. So, over time, what kind of denials has the city given to different folks? I mean, for
Right.
what, just like a couple different reasons.
As a matter of fact, we were talking about this the other day. I can't remember the last time. It's been a long time since we've denied anybody.
All right.
And
so-
what we do is we work with event organizers to make sure that the event flows and that everything works and everything aligns with what they need and what we need. So we haven't denied anyone for a long time.
And I would attest to that. Celestine and the mayor's office have been great to work with. There are times we submit permits and we need to work on them.
And there's such a big input from all the various departments that are involved in
Yes.
special events. And I have pretty much confidence in a lot that they do. I mean, is it perfect? Not always, but, sometimes it depends on the promoter as well and their intent.
Well, that's why I want to be clear. Some of the suggestions I brought up, 90% of this is awesome. It's the 10%, scenarios where this could happen that I just at least wanted to address.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I've got. That's all I-
Anything? Anybody care to speak on this? I'll take a motion to open the floor.
Motion open the floor?
By Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Jesus. Sorry, my computer wants me to restart and update.
Pay your bills.
Did we vote?
Yes.
And did I ask for anybody for any dying? No? Anybody, no? Any nays? No nays? Majority carries. The
Yes.
floor is now open.
Yes.
Please state your name and address, and please fill out one of the forms before you go.
All right, Pam Parrish, downtown Green Bay, 2396 Sycamore Drive. I just wanted to bounce off of Brian for the clarifications. I apologize I didn't come before. I didn't know I was going to be the one coming. So a couple of things he already addressed. And this kind of stemmed out from the Better Law Project conversation we had last week. So in part 4 for application, number 12, talks about the cost of additional city services.
Tell us.
Sorry, it talks about the
Yes.
cost of the additional city services. Is there a way that these city services can have a standard or estimated cost so that event organizers can know this upfront when they're budgeting for the event?
So that's an excellent question.
Good question.
Parrish and Alder Scannell. Lindsay will have to let me know exactly, because I had my hands in it, Lindsay had her hands in it, so now I can't remember if it's still in there. At one point, we did say that we would do our best to communicate the fees, the estimate of fees to the organizer. Is that still in there?
I'll look lawyers.
Okay. So, yes, I think it's really important that we communicate an estimation of what the fees would be. That's part of the 60 days, to be honest with you. That helps us to get everyone and get all the estimates together so that we can present to the organizer, yep, this is what it's going to take to put this event together. So that's part of the reason why we have 60 days. Is it in, okay, good, it is in there, right?
I thought it was.
Where is that?
'cause It's on page 6, it's very top of it, it says A. In the middle of the paragraph, you see estimated minimum services will be determined prior to the event with a reasonably increase or decrease.
Right. Okay, so I guess my thought, is, because a lot of the city services that will be assessed are similar across events, like if you'll need barricades or if you'll need, whatever else, but so if the city has a standard of you need one barricade per 10 feet and you know your event is gonna be 100 feet, what's the cost for one of those barricades?
But that might change over time.
Right, and that's where the asterisk comes in, saying like this could change over time, but I think year to year it shouldn't change that much. Because the event organizers budget for an event before they put the 60-day event permit, or apply for the permit. That's the only reason I'm asking that.
Would we
So
need it in
we
the
had
ordinance or in the packet?
Well, that, we had a lot of conversation around that. So the city of Oshkosh uses the FEMA rates, and every nail is accounted for in their schedule of fees. We did not come to any hard and fast conclusions about that. I'm definitely, now that we have someone who is really, part of his job is really designated to do this work, I think we can come up with something, but unfortunately, these costs do change, and a lot of it is labor cost, not the cost of the actual thing.
Okay.
So a meter hood is $10. That includes the labor cost, but the barricade doesn't. The showmobile is another example. There's a showmobile cost, but there's a labor cost around the showmobile. Now, I think actually just recently Parks Department had sort of tried to do more of a like, here's the whole thing, right? The whole full price, instead of an a la carte $500 for the showmobile, then another $70 an hour for God knows how many people, which really frustrated some event organizers. So we hadn't gotten there. We hadn't gotten any solid answers. I think it's really incumbent upon us to give you an estimate of what those costs would be. I'm not sure if that's adequate enough.
To add on top of that, there is an expectation that a resolution creating a special event fee schedule will be adopted as part of this process. It's just not part of the ordinance because it does allow for changes to occur, but it will be adopted annually to give you an idea, at least to anticipate what the cost will be.
Okay, thank you. Same, so page 6, number 7, another clarification question, excuse me. It's when saying public safety and security resources for the special events, it'll be determined. When is this communicated at the special event permit meeting that's with the event organizers, or when is this communicated to the event organizers for what those resources for staffing will need to be?
So when the application comes in, and there'll be a newer process with the application, because right now it's still a PDF, we'll have a fillable form online. So then the special event coordinator can go to all the various departments who need to look at it. The police department, and that's Brad Strouf. I always do that, Strouf. So he's the one who is the key person for special events at PD, for instance. And he will say, yep, we can do this, this, and this, and he will say approved, and then that way the special events coordinator can communicate.
Okay.
But that's not I don't think that's necessarily in the ordinance.
So there isn't a timeline for communication? Because that also has to do with the budget too for event organizers.
I think we'd want that pretty much up front right away, right, with the application, kind of?
Application, we can't react to something that isn't submitted.
Right.
So the application's submitted. We don't have a time frame listed.
Does
as
part
to
of
when.
that, well, I'm sorry,
Yep.
does
No.
part of that depend on events that you may have had over a period of time? Like you get a feel for it, and then you can
Yes.
kind of,
Right.
it makes it easier the next time.
Yeah.
It seems like for startups, that might be a little more difficult, but it seems like, Celestine, that this handles it pretty well. So I don't know, unless there's something else.
I just like can we hear within 15 days of getting it, 30 days? I was just curious if that was
Right.
something that could be done, or if it.
Would that be a good thing to put in the ordinance, or a good thing to have as policy, or what?
I mean, I have drafted a new special event booklet to go along with this, which no one has seen really but the departments, right? Because the application isn't live yet, and so if this would be acceptable, I can absolutely put a time frame in the special event booklet.
Okay, yeah,
If
it's just good to know, because we always have new events coming up.
Right.
Page 7, letter H, it talks about sufficient number of parking spaces within a reasonable distance to accommodate number of vehicles expected. Is there a number of the sufficient number of parking spaces for each size event? So,
Oh, that's okay.
just because I know,
Yes, is there a, no, I forgot, otherwise I'll forget that. Thank you, Bill. Say that again, Pam?
is there a number of sufficient number of parking spaces for each different size event that's known? Or is it just,
That's an excellent question. I think there isn't a standard.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, there is a standard? No, there isn't a
Okay.
standard. As a matter of fact, the development department is working on amending some
Okay.
parking requirements even for
Right.
brick and mortar
for
stores,
development
so.
and stuff? Yeah.
You know, we just want to know, I mean, essentially, the purpose of that is to say, if you're going to have a very large event and everyone's going to descend at one time, you need to think about where people are going to park, and you need to direct those people to that place to park.
Okay. And then I think my last
Well,
question,
no,
sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh,
This is my last question, or clarification question. It has to do with the appeal procedure. So it says that you have 7 days to appeal the denial, and then within 15 days of that appeal, the committee will hear you, but it doesn't have a date on when that decision will be made for their appeal process. So if you do the 60 days before your event. and-
After the committee would make a decision right away, but it would need council
It
approval.
would be council approval.
So
Okay.
it would just follow our normal procedure of committee would make a recommendation to council, and then depending upon that recommendation, they'd be able to go to council and give their side or whatever,
Okay.
same
So
same
you're-
as.
Okay, so once it's heard, right, then they make their decision for the next council meeting?
So, yes, so
The council meetings are usually a week before the common council meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Committee meetings are a week before.
Yeah.
There have been very rare instances where a decision is not rendered at the time of the hearing.
Okay.
It's been very, very rare that it's been pushed to, like, for the research is required or something. And so that's the only time that it's been pushed to the following meeting.
Okay.
But generally, the standard operating procedure for the city of Green Bay is a decision is rendered tonight.
Okay, so that's just practice, not needed to be in. I just
Mhm.
clarifying all of it.
Yep.
I think that's all the clarification questions I had. Is there any questions for me?
Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You said you wanted me to fill this out.
Yes, please.
I just had a quick question.
Yep.
Celestine, I was going to ask, this manual you're working on,
Yes.
I mean, it's a PDF, I presume, or online.
It will-
It's still in the process of being amended,
Yes,
worked
so-
on?
Correct, and so
Okay.
it will be, so the online application will be a fillable form like we have now. Right now, the application is a PDF. So in the application, you will be able to you will be able to click on something which will take you right to the booklet. So it will be
Right. But the booklet itself is not, I mean, you said it's completed, or it's still in the process of being amended a little
Oh,
bit because of?
no, it's completed, but, I mean, obviously not, because I needed to see what was going to happen at this meeting.
I'm just hoping you didn't
Council
print a lot of copies.
meeting. Oh, no, no.
Nothing like that?
No,
Oh,
don't
okay.
worry.
All right,
No.
okay. All right. That's all I
Saving
have.
paper.
Celestine,
Yes,
one other recommendation is I'm looking at the matrix under non-resident fee.
yes.
When I look at this, I almost thought that non-residents were going to pay less, so I presume that this means additional, in which case I might encourage you to add the word additional, similar to first-time event. Right, we're not,
No, the non-resident fee, that is the fee.
so they're going to pay less than people who are local?
Where are you
So
looking?
when I look at like a large event over 5,000,
Yes,
local people will pay $275, but a non-resident will pay $250. Or a special hazard event, local people pay $550, non-residents pay $250.
oh, yes. Uh-oh. That is a mistake. That's a mistake.
Typo.
Yep, that is not accurate, sorry.
Okay.
I will fix that.
So that can be corrected for the full council
Yes,
packet?
yeah, no, it's not an upcharge, that is the fee.
So maybe just an acknowledgement then by committee that will be,
Yep.
Yes,
new numbers will be put in there before the council. packet
When
is
we
prepared.
adopt this, we'll adopt as
As
amended.
amended.
yes. And actually, so just like Vanessa was saying about a a schedule of charges for various services that we provide. This is a separate document from the actual ordinance so that it can be changed.
Okay, right. Yeah, I didn't think that was in the ordinance. Yeah. That actually doesn't pertain to what we're gonna, the motion we'll be making. It's not in the ordinance.
So the fee's not in the ordinance?
No.
Okay,
It's-
sorry, is that what you just said?
Yes.
I was half listening.
That was my half listening to.
Yeah.
So,
Is there anything else?
Motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor by Alder Stevens, second by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor of closing the floor?
Aye.
Opposed? The floor is now closed. You can walk safely. Anything else from staff?
No. I just want to make sure we have a compilation of all the changes that we are.
Yes, so I have basically a motion to, or what suggested motion language would be, to amend the draft ordinance to include language that an event per application may include a series of events, and to amend the language to, with respect to the cancellation fee language, to indicate that the assessment of a late fee be discretionary. So the may instead of a will.
right,
And that was what I
that's it.
But if it's a May, what about July and August?
I gotta sit next to him.
So is there a motion to approve as so amended? So a motion by Alder Stevens,
Second.
seconded by Alder Vanderleest. Any further discussion?
So that's a motion to amend and then we'll, or was that a motion to approve?
A motion to approve as amended,
As amended.
as you,
Got it. I always do this.
okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? We've got ourselves an ordinance.
Just about.
Good job, thank you.
Still got to go through the council.
Yep. This will go on to the council, yep.
So now,
Why, oh, I
Ten.
can't.
Well,
Well,
under 14.
we, as soon as
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
she's ready.
Yes.
And it is 14, correct? We're going to now?
Mhm.
Number 14, consideration of possible action on the general records schedule for Wisconsin municipal and related records dated August 27, 2018. Staff.
So that's me. So we are working toward updating our records retention schedule, and one of the steps in the process to kind of bring the city up into compliance with the state general records schedule is to complete the form that's on the first page in the packet, which is to notify the Public Records Board of the city's intention to adopt the municipal records schedule, which is the rest of what's in that packet. And then we'll send that to the PRB, and then after they approve it, we can pass an ordinance here adopting our new records retention schedule.
We're not really doing the ordinance right now, we're just,
Correct,
Okay.
we're just submitting the form.
okay.
The new schedule, a lot of the retention periods that are on our current records retention schedule are much longer than what's outlined in the new schedule that we're looking to adopt. So it will help cut down on some of the records that we're keeping longer than the state board now says that we need to. However, we can't just go out and start destroying records. We need to actually make sure that we're maintaining compliance with all of the different procedures that the Public Records Board has established. And the very first step in doing that is completing this form. There are 3 checkboxes on the form. It allows us to opt in altogether. We adopt the entire schedule. Opt in with revisions means opting out of certain schedules if we choose, or out into only certain schedules if we choose to do that, and then opting out altogether. Staff's recommendation would be to opt in to the entire thing.
All in, huh?
All in.
All in, wow. Is that what we do with records, then we destroy them?
No.
Oh.
So, the way it works right now, there's a number of items that, so once items have exceeded their life requirement under the records retention, we're obligated to contact the Historical Society and get their permission to actually either get rid of the records, at which point they get destroyed, or it gives them the opportunity to take possession of those records for anything they feel has historical value.
Oh, okay, I like that.
I guess the question I have, Vanessa, you said Historical Society, would that be through the City Landmarks Commission or the Brown County?
No, it's through the state.
Through the state, I see. Okay.
And if you look on the schedules in the packet, the far right column is the WHS notification,
Okay.
which is what indicates whether we need to notify the Wisconsin Historical Society
So-
prior to destroying that particular record.
So this obviously is something that you looked at through what they did and kind of borrowed and gleaned from that, or is it kind of a copy of what
This is
they've done?
actually copied and pasted directly from
From
there.
theirs.
There were some extraneous things in that schedule that I didn't want to include in this, just to keep it simple. But the wording is all the same. It's all from the PRB schedule. They
So-
adopted it last August.
You feel comfortable with this, the law department? With-
Yes, this is actually, we've been trying to get this in front of you guys for a while, since they adopted it last year. The existing record schedule is outdated, and it was kind of not done happenstance, but it was more done, I think, with fear of destroying things they possibly needed. So there's a lot of things in there that are kept as permanent retention, which makes zero sense. So we got literally all of the records for the sixth floor for community and economic development are listed as permanent retention. There's a number of things that probably should be kept permanently. The entirety of everything that's generated by that floor is not it. Same thing with our litigation. We have permanent retention for our litigation files. That doesn't necessarily make sense for all of the drafts and stuff like that, maybe the pleadings, maybe the exhibits, but for everything that is permanent, it doesn't, we're not being, we're not using the best resources we have available to us by keeping things permanent.
I'm just going to ask another question, like, in community development, they have a lot of plans that they produce, and a lot of these will either come to fruition or they'll die in the vine. So with that being said, there's a lot of plans that have gone back 30, 40, 50 years. Where do you find the time to say this is historical versus not? I suppose you're letting the state determine that?
That's correct.
Even though they might not have maybe the everyday feel for it that we do at the city. So I'm just wondering, you're kind of giving them carte blanche to make the decisions on something like this.
They really are the entity that establishes records retention. We, as the city, are able to adopt our own if we feel like there's stuff that needs to be kept longer. And so that is something that we could look at. My recommendation at this point, though, is for us to move forward because there's a number of things that we're waiting to do that are being held up. And so rather than, this isn't the last time you're going to see it, we still have to bring the ordinance forward. And there's a couple of requests, like Alder Weary asked, that we change the duration that we keep thank you, the campaign finances be kept for. And so this isn't the last time you guys are going to see records retention. We are just saying that in order to get us moving forward, we need to get this thing adopted because it's long overdue.
Motion to move forward.
With a motion to adopt with the staff recommendation that we adopt the entire schedule? By Alder Stevens, so moved.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Alder Steuer. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Woo! We're just zinging along here.
Thank you.
You think so?
Thank you. All right. Are we ready to go back, I believe, to number 8?
Yes.
All right. Number 8, consideration of possible action and appeal by Dennis Bailey at 621 Challenger Drive regarding his inspection fee. Did staff want to go first on this, or?
You can go first.
Okay, then I will
Motion.
take a
Open the floor.
motion, open the floor.
Second.
Seconded by motion by Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, the floor is now open. Could you please state your name and address for the record, and make sure you fill out one of those forms to
Okay.
give to staff before you-
Dennis Bailey, 621 Challenger Drive. Okay, I built the fence 4 years ago. 3 years after the fence was built, they came along and said that I was not in ordinance. I applied for a variance. When I went to apply for a variance, I talked to the person there, and he said, get signatures from the neighbors. If they complained, I got signatures from all the neighbors. There was no complaints. He says it was just a formality, it should go through. So I was not prepared properly for the variance hearing because I thought it was just a formality that the city employee told me. I got the signatures, everything was fine. The variance was turned down. I hired an attorney because there was at least 7 people with a 10-mile area of me that were in violation of the ordinance. So I tried fighting it, it didn't go through. My attorney talked to Paul and tried to get another hearing set up. It was set up, but unfortunately I had to work and my attorney was out of town and they would not reschedule it again. So then I went through the mayor's office, and the mayor's office was working on it.
Okay, can I just talk 1 second?
Sure.
What time did you go to the, what date was the mayor's office that you went through?
The mayor's office, I talked to them on the 8th of July.
8th of July, okay.
I was in Sturgeon Bay getting a recall done on my car, and he said that if I didn't do something with the fence, that I would get a ticket and fines would be established. And the inspector was gonna come around that day and look at it. I was trying to get a 1-foot variance because my air conditioner was right in the way of the peak of the house, the center line of the house. And I talked to Paul, and Paul says, you shouldn't lose any sleep about it, I'm sure that's gonna be okay. But he said you're gonna have to go through Mr. Meeves. So Mr. Meeves showed up that day, and he drove by, and I whistled to him, I was cutting the grass, and I asked him, I said, can I get a foot? And he says, no, you can't get a foot. I said, fine, I will take the fence down today. So I did take the fence down the same day that the mayor told me there would be no fees. After he showed up and said I couldn't do it, 2 days later, I got a fine for $50 in the mail. And I do have pictures that it was taken down. And I've got pictures of other places that are in violation of the same code, and there has nothing been done about them.
Is your fence, was that right on the lot line, or was it?
The fence was on the lot line, and the corner ordinance says it can't go past the peak, so,
Oh, sorry. People do that to me all the time.
okay? The air conditioner was here. I talked to the air conditioning people. They said I had to have 3-foot clearance around the air conditioner so they could do maintenance on it. So if I went 3 feet, I was right in the middle of this window. So I went past the window right up to, it was 10 feet past the middle of the house is what it ended up to be. And
So
it was-
when you went to the Board of Appeals, you were assuming that it was gonna go through?
Right.
And many times we always suggest that if you have an issue, that to be there, and you couldn't be there.
No, I was there.
Well,
first
you were
time.
there.
The
The
first time.
first time.
First time.
But I was told it was just a formality. I didn't take pictures, I didn't bring neighbors in, I didn't do anything. Because I said, it's just a formality, it should go through if none of the neighbors complained. And it was 3 years after the fence was built. 3 years. And I figured, and it looked good, it wasn't blocking traffic, it wasn't interfering. I was parking my boat and my trailer in here. The boat that my dad gave me that we fished in, was just a small fishing boat. My kids went fishing in it, and now my grandkids are fishing in it. And now I'm gonna have to get rid of it because I can't afford to pay storage fees.
So was it parked on grass?
Yes, but I was
But you
planning
had
on
blocks?
putting crushed gravel in there.
Okay, because I was just wondering what.
No, I was gonna put crusher dust in there this year, as a matter of fact. But then this all went haywire. So I have taken the fence down, and I did able to move the air conditioner enough. And I'm gonna put a swinging gate here so they can work on it. But I'm doing all this by myself, by the way, in this heat.
But you can still Well,
But there,
staff, I'll wait for staff on that.
here's another residence that's in violation. It goes well past the peak. Within 10 miles, here's another one. Here's another one. This is a white fence on a corner lot. They're all in violation, and there's nothing being done about those.
Right, and sadly,
And,
you know, we're looking at you right now.
yes,
You
I
know,
know.
all those
I know.
other folks, they have to deal with it accordingly.
But I guess what I'm
You want consistency.
What I'm angry really about is the mayor's office said there would be no fines or penalties if I took that fence down that day. And I did start working on it right after I got the grass cut. And I told Mr. Meaves that I was gonna do that.
So when did you get the fine? After-
2 days later.
2 days after the fence was down.
Yes.
Did it state on there why you got the fine?
He said it was a reinspection fee, and I feel I'm
Oh.
being harassed by him. You know, I
Okay,
wanted.
it wasn't a fine, it was a reinspection fee,
Correct.
so, okay.
And I don't feel that they're giving reinspection fees for other things normally.
Well,
Well, these
we'll
days
hear
they
from-
are, but.
We'll hear, I want to hear from them too, but
Yep,
this,
yep.
I appreciate you bringing that up.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
So,
But this is a 4-year, we're working on 4 years here.
Always let me talk to you.
Yep, we will leave the floor open so that, because staff can talk without closing the floor.
Okay. Well, let's see.
Yep.
Chairman Scannell and members of the committee, Mr. Bailey.
If you can
Come on up,
Yeah, if you get, yeah.
even though you do project.
Mr. Bailey obtained a fence permit. And on that fence permit was a site plan indicating proper location of the fence that he wished to install.
When was that?
2015.
Okay.
Mr. Bailey didn't follow that approved plan. He didn't follow the ordinance requirement. He didn't approve the site plan that he submitted along with the permit application.
So how different was it in terms of just, well, what are the differences?
Well,
I just wanted to,
I mean, I think it was significant. The requirement is for the fence to be positioned no further than the center point of the home. And in reality, that is what he installed back in 2015, or some point thereafter. The permit's good for 1 year.
so the timing, like I said, it wasn't a fine, it was an inspection fee.
It was an inspection fee.
Right, after the fence came down. Okay, so there's a difference. It's not-
So
I
the
mean,
inspect.
It's not a fine.
It's not a fine.
It's not a fine.
It's an inspection fee.
And the reinspection fee was assessed at that point that I did the reinspection in July on the 8th.
So in
And
a
at
sense
that
that,
point,
oh,
Mr. Bailey's mowing the lawn, the fence is in the same position as you see right here. Yes, he did indicate that he was going to address it after he was done mowing the lawn, but please understand, I mean, I've been dealing with this since October of the previous year. So after 8 months and one reinspection fee, there could have been multiple reinspection fees. Indeed, there could have been a municipal court citation with a much higher forfeiture amount. I did none of that. I issued the one. I felt I was justified. All we're looking for is compliance. The last time I was out there was August 2nd. The sections in question had been removed by Mr. Bailey. And now I think, unless he's completed with the project, he was in the process of relocating those sections and in a proper location. That may be done now, I'm not sure.
The boat, that's kind of a separate issue though, right? I mean, that's got really nothing to do with the fence. Okay, he could still put his boat back there, right, if he put down
the blocks.
the blocks?
Well, the hard surface material,
Right.
we're not allowing the gravel to be brought in per se, but a hard
It
surface.
means a hard surface.
Yeah, and he meets the setback requirements for,
But I can't go past the center of the house
With the boat?
with the boat.
Correct.
Really? Wow, okay.
You know,
The people on, can I speak?
Yep, the floor's still open, so.
The people on the variance committee didn't even know this ordinance existed. They had to get clarification because of a side lot And the reason that I changed it was because, like I said, I didn't realize the fence was gonna come to the air conditioner. And I talked to the air conditioning people, and they said they had 3 feet around the air conditioning was ideal for working on. Then the window was involved, and I didn't feel, as long as I didn't know the ordinance existed. And I thought if I didn't go past the corner of the house where it was blocking traffic, it was fine. I did not do it maliciously. There was nothing malicious in my thinking at all when I built the fence. You know, I had to move back 2 feet from the, because all the wiring ran on the center where the post would have went. So I had to move it back 24 inches to put the post in. And that limited to what I was doing also.
But the inspection, I mean, they're separate from, they're just following what the planning commission did. I mean, it sounds like the planning commission's the, I don't know why they didn't give you a variance. But they didn't. And so inspection is just doing their job. It seems like the biggest beef here is with
But I don't feel that he had to give me the
$50.
$50 fee. And I think it was vindictive because I didn't have the fence down, and I've been fighting it since October.
I have a question.
Sure.
So when you, according to Mr. Meaves, the plan that you submitted is not, you didn't follow the
Right.
plan?
Right, I did not follow it.
So,
For the
were
reason-
were you aware of it? I mean, were you aware that, did you think you were doing the correct thing when you built the
Yes.
fence?
Yes, I did.
Even though,
I didn't think there was an ordinance on the side lot. I have built fences on, but it wasn't on a corner lot. And as long as I didn't go past the corner of the house, I thought I was safe, because I built a fence at my previous residence, and I went all the way to the corner of my house, but it wasn't on a corner lot.
when you came in though to get your permit, did you talk to anybody in inspection? Did they lay that out to you?
No, they did not.
I don't know if I can,
I think that a copy of the ordinance should be included with the building permit when you get a building permit, so you're aware of it.
Tim, I don't know if I can ask you that, you know, if that, you know, a lot of times when somebody does come in to get a permit, that, you know, there are many ordinances, there are many things that you folks have to deal with, but a lot of the citizenry is not gonna know all of that. So with that being said, do you feel that your department gave him, Mr., I'm sorry, last name?
Bailey.
Mr. Bailey, do you feel that your department, well, you're speaking for yourself, but did you give him the information that he needed to follow that site plan correctly? I mean, in your estimation, I
Would
don't
that
know.
be inspection or planning?
No, it's inspection. When he comes
Okay.
to the front counter for the permit, he would have been informed of that. That's why they put it halfway up the house.
I put it halfway up the house because my wife wanted it halfway up the house.
But it's halfway up the house on the site plan that's in the permit.
Right.
So if it had been any other one, it would have been all the way to the front, if it wasn't on a corner lot. So they specifically drew it in at the half point, which is a requirement on the corner lot. So it would have been discussed, do we hand out all the codes at every permit? No, we wouldn't have time. Because like you suggested, there's a half dozen to a dozen codes that are applicable to just about anything you do.
So,
Right. So the thing to have done is when he needed to change was to check, yeah.
Because you're not following the approved site plan.
And I could see where you didn't think you needed to, but it would have been the best thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree, a simple phone call or a double check with our department. Certainly, if he would have brought in a plan looking for a permit to put the fence in that location, our person
Would
at
have
the
said
front
no.
counter issuing the permit, the red flag would have went up and said, Mr. Bailey, wait a minute,
so
we
initially,
can't do
when
this.
the site plan came in, how was it drawn? I mean, was it drawn so
I
that?
drew that in
Draw
like
to-
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me jump in. Okay, all right. That's all I have for now.
Any other questions or anything from anyone? I'm just trying to get the timelines down a little more, because this has gone on a long time.
Yes, it is. They
It was,
told me I didn't have to do anything during the winter because of the frozen ground and everything and trying to get the concrete put, and they would give me leeway. And then I talked to an attorney, and she tried to get another hearing so I could reestablish the things that went on and what happened, and it was turned down. And this was just a couple months ago that this was turned down. And then I contacted Senator Hansen. Senator Hansen called the mayor's office and got them involved. And I didn't hear them until July 8th. And July 8th, they said there was nothing they could do about it. And I was just doing everything I could to keep the fence where it was. Because I thought there was nothing wrong with it. The neighbors had no problems. Nobody complained about it to take it down. He was just finally doing his inspection after 3 years and caught it.
So was the variance committee, though, denied it?
Right, because I wasn't properly prepared, because I told it was just going to be a formality if I had the signatures.
Well, that's not always a guarantee.
I know.
That's not a guarantee.
I know, and I realize that now.
And for some, yeah, and I mean, for someone to say it's just a formality,
Your city employee did it. Your city employee told me it was gonna be a formality.
may I ask which city employee?
It was the person at the desk that I paid the $75 to.
All right, well,
He told me it was just a formality.
well, with my experience in the years in the department, I am at least very quick to point out that applying for a variance is not an automatic.
yeah.
It's not an automatic. It's not just a formality at all
So
whatsoever.
that's what your employee
Well-
told me.
Well, right, and I can't
Right.
dispute that.
That's,
Yep. Yep. Any other
But
questions?
at this
or-
point, I would just like to get the fine waived for $50.
Fee,
The fee.
Fee, not a fine.
fee, yep.
Because the mayor's office did assure me that if I did it that day on the 8th, and I did do it, after I cut the grass, and it's 3.5
Did you-
miles walking, I
Right.
did take.
You went by and, did
Yeah.
you?
Who in the mayor's office did you talk to?
His
Jared.
assistant.
Jared.
Jared. Both times.
My.
And they were going back and forth with Mr. Meads too at the mayor's office.
Yep,
Is Jared here?
Go ahead.
no.
Let
I had a discussion with Jared from the mayor's office prior to my visit to Mr. Bailey's property on July 8th. I explained to him that my reinspection finding, if there was no work in progress, at that point, after all this time, I would more than likely issue a reinspection fee and possibly a citation if work hadn't been started.
Mhm.
At that point, again, just as late as it is in the game and the work wasn't started, that's when I made a decision to issue the reinspection fee. One fee, $50. I told Jared very clearly that I was going back out the week of the 8th to perform the reinspection, and if it was in the process of being relocated, I would work with Mr. Bailey and follow up with him until we got it repositioned and then close out the case. But if I didn't find, mind you, on June 5th, the previous month, I met him on site. I met Mr. Bailey on site, and we talked about the required fence location and answered some of the questions he had at that time.
How many times?
He became a little upset.
Yeah.
He was upset with the ordinance, he was upset with the variance procedure, he was upset with certain city staff. He wasn't happy about having to move the fence. I could sense that very clearly. So that's June 5th. July 8th, after telling the mayor's office assistant, Jared, I'm just looking for progress, that finally we're going to have some progress with relocation of the fence sections in question. That wasn't the case at that point.
How many times did you go out to this property over time? I mean, because each time you normally would go out, technically that'd be like a reinspection, correct?
Correct.
So how many times
I'm
roughly did you go
sure
out?
There's a list here.
in total, a handful, 5 or 6 times.
Okay. So there were no costs for that? This $50 for the one check, for one check.
Okay.
He was out there 7 times.
Seven? Seven. Well,
And regarding Mr. Bailey's concern about some of these other properties, I think he may have showed you a picture of a big white fence. That's legally installed. But believe it or not, it's legally installed. The property owner owns their lot and the vacant corner lot, and that fence does not extend out into the setback. That's a legal installation. So we're not doing anything because there's nothing wrong with where it's located. If Mr. Bailey provided addresses to us with the other properties he has concerns about, we follow up on those.
I don't feel it's my
In fact,
job
one
to
was
do
sit-
his job for him.
But we only, inspection does not go out and look. Everything is by, and that's why I don't understand, except for this, because there's a permit. But why was it such a long delay between the issue of the permit and following up on?
I can
When we-
answer that, I can
Okay.
answer that. What's going on upstairs right now is working on the computer system to make it more automated. So what the onus has been since 2013, when they put the new Eclipse system in place, the onus is on, and it says on all our permits, that the owner is required to call in for an inspection, final inspection. Well, it never happened. And we didn't have the system in place to go, hey, Tim, or whom, it wasn't Tim at the time, hey, Mr. Inspector, go follow up even though they haven't called. Because some people don't start, so when would you go? A year later, 2 years later, 3? So one of the big pushes that I'm making right now is we're going through all the old projects, we're closing them all out on the books. That's how it came to light.
My mother got a notice.
That's not true. I talked to them when I did it, and I says, do I have to call when the fence is done? And they said, no, we just do a drive-by, everything is fine. You don't have, and that is what I was told
And that was 4 years ago?
4 years ago. They said, you don't have to call in, we just do a drive-by on fence issues, you don't have to worry about it. And that is exactly what I was told. And my son was there with me when I had it done.
like I said, I know there's no ill intent on your part. I understand where you're coming from, but like I said, we're looking at what the site plan was
Right. I understand.
and what happened. And it's.
I'm trying to explain
Yep.
the issues, what happened, you know. Do you
I
have an
have
issue?
a question.
Yep.
I have a question. So November of last year, Board of Appeals denied your request.
Right.
And then again in May, they said basically took no action, so it was still denied. Why did it take you 3 months to take the fence down?
Because I was working with Senator Hanson's in the mayor's office, and I was working with my attorney. My attorney was working with Paul, and he was trying to get another meeting set up on a Monday, and unfortunately, I need 3 weeks' notice, and I had to work that week. It was just the 2 weeks that I could go there, and my attorney was out of city. And then they wouldn't reschedule it. I requested to reschedule for the next month, and they would not reschedule.
But it went to Board of Appeals twice.
It went
November of last year, May of this year.
May, that's what I said, in May, I asked, they gave me a 2-day notice that it was gonna be in May.
In November of last year.
In November of last year, I made it. I was at there, but the May one, I couldn't make because I was scheduled to work, I couldn't get out of it, and my attorney was out of town. And we talked to Paul and asked him if we could reschedule for June, and they wouldn't let us reschedule for June.
So you were hoping to maybe reschedule for July then too, or
No,
this
no.
is just, but this is taking time?
Right, and I was trying to get,
Is there a policy, Paul, for inspection on something like this where if they cannot make it, if they let your department know far enough in advance, can they take the agenda and say, we'll move it up?
That's not mine.
That's
the
not your
Board of
call.
Appeals.
Board of
That's
Appeals.
mine.
Yep.
And that, the council has no call over that either. You know, the Board of Appeals is separate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that
Like
makes
the,
it, we can't really do much there.
No. It's on,
Yeah, it is what it is.
yeah. There's several things here I feel are really, really regrettable, but we have no authority over it. All we got is the $50 fee, and I guess I understand why staff is saying it was time to give it to him, and I can understand why he wants to appeal that. He's been burning up a lot of time here trying to get, to save that fence. Which, well, I got an opinion on that, but I'm not gonna share it because it doesn't really matter. And then because I don't know enough. I don't understand what the problem is, but whatever. So,
I think, I mean, it's an interesting case in the sense that you had your attorney involved in this, so it kind of put things in limbo somewhat for you, but yet the city still had to move forward with what they were doing, so it seemed like those two elements were not jiving. So that makes it a more unique situation than normally that we deal with, at least in my estimation.
The final line is I did take the fence down that day. I worked until about 9 o'clock at night, and I did have that fence down after I seen him. I told him I would do it, and I did it. I'm a man of my word. I took it down, except for the posts that I had to get out of the ground that were concreted in. But everything else was down.
But Tim, you said you came out there, how long after he took the fence down? Or you were there before, just?
Yeah.
I mean, you came out, the re-inspection fee is just to make sure that you did what you did. That's all. It wasn't a fine.
I promised the mayor's office that I would take it down, and he told me if I took it down on the 8th, which I did, there would be no charges involved.
no charges at all.
That's what he told me.
But that was not my communication with the mayor's office.
Well, that was his communication with me. If I took it down that day,
My communication with the mayor's office and my understanding with the mayor's office was that I was going to re-inspect the fence that week, early that week, July 8th, it turned out to be the day. And I explicitly, clearly told Jared in the mayor's office, Jared, if work has begun on fence relocation, no fees or fines will be levied. However, if no effort has been made at that point.
Did I promise you I would take it down that day? Did I promise you?
You didn't promise me. You told me that you were gonna start working on the fence after you finished mowing the lawn that day. That's what you told me.
And I did.
And after 7 visits to the property and 8 months later, I'm not sure what to believe anymore.
Yeah, well, and if I might just interject, I mean, you're a man of your word, but you must understand, staff has to work with all kinds of, and they don't know you're a man of your word. I mean, they're just doing their job and doing their procedures. So like I say, I can understand why they're issuing the fee. It's not a slam against your word or anything like that. It's from their perspective, and I think you can see how they could have been hitting you with fees much sooner. They could have been hitting you with a fine, and they've done none of that to try to work with you, and because of all that's going on. So I hope you can appreciate that, but I understand your grievances in that you feel you've been misled a couple of different times by this city. And there's no way for us to verify that, but I have no reason to doubt you either. That's what makes this a little ticklish for me.
I've gotten building permits before, and I had filed them, and I've had to get a variance, and I've gone through the procedure, and I've gotten variances before, so I know what they are, and I've done it. I've done building permits, and I've done it by the book. I remodeled the whole house, and I've got building permits, electrical, plumbing, all that, and I followed them by the book. I've been inspected. I've never.
And that's great, but why didn't you do that in this case with the fence?
Because I wasn't aware of the ordinance.
Okay.
Well, ignorance is no excuse.
No,
either.
I realize that.
Okay, July 8th, you said you're gonna take the fence down. Reiterate just for the record, Tim, when you went out there, did you go out there on July 8th?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and when you went out there, what time was it? Morning?
I had my car around 3 o'clock.
About 3 in the afternoon? So you said you were gonna take the fence down on July 8th. So
Yes.
you went out there on July 8th and the fence was still up. So after you left, when did you take the fence down?
I finished cutting the grass because I wanted to get the clippings to the yard the landfill before they closed the gates. As soon as I got that done, I started around 5 o'clock. And I
So
took
was
the
that, it was after work was over, in a sense. I mean, you can understand where they're coming from. Their work day is 4:30 or 5 o'clock in summer hours.
Right.
So it was all already July 9th in a sense. It was the next day.
But the thing of it is I promised him I would take it down. I promised him that I would, I said, as soon as I finish with the grass, I will get on the fence, and I did.
And there's no, and for you, Tim, to go out there after 6, 7 o'clock, when did it come down actually? What time did you
I
finish?
finally got it down around 9 o'clock.
Very dark at that time, and there's no reason.
It was starting to get dark.
There was
yes.
no reason for a city staff to come out at 9 o'clock. It would have been overtime, which is not, we don't go for that, per se, for that. So you can see where the frustration is. We're not coming at you, but the thing is, you said you promised, but it was after the fact when they were done working. So you can see where we have to look at it. We have to look at both sides of this.
As long as we're sharing frustrations, okay, can I share some additional frustration on my
Go ahead.
Okay. April 17th of this year. Called owner regarding fence relocation order. He requested a meeting on site next week and will call me early in that week to schedule that appointment. April 17th. By May 3rd, I hadn't heard from Mr. Bailey. 2 weeks later. On May 30th, I visited the property. Fence, again, no work on it, it's in the same location. So, I waited for that call that never came. I visited his house on May 3rd, knocked on the door, nobody home, left my business card, and just asked if he could call me. I was there to meet him on site if he was home. Heard nothing until I went back out there at the end of the month on May 30th. So that, some of my frustration, again, making a trip out there, it's our busy time of the season. One of my 7 stops.
Anything else from any alders? Any other questions for Mr. Bailey or staff?
So we're just talking about $50.
Yep.
Seems like it's more the principle of the matter, not the fine.
Yeah, insult to injury.
Right, and all that. Should we
From his
close the floor?
perspective. If there's no, that's what I'm making sure. No other questions?
Close the floor.
Okay, motion to close the floor by Alder Stevens.
Second.
Second by Alder, well, before we do that, anything, okay. Motion by Alder Stevens to close the floor, seconded by Alder Steuer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the floor is now closed. What's your wishes, gentlemen? What are you thinking?
Well, it's compelling on both sides, and I understand it well. I really feel that the city has gone out there 7 or 8 times. You can't assume that variances are gonna go through. There was just a number of things that seemed to be working. A perfect storm, if you will. I don't feel the city had any ulterior motives here, even though Mr. Bailey, and I don't feel he did either. But I think in this case, it's not a fine, it was an inspection fee, so I vote to deny the appeal. I make a motion.
Motion by Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Stevens. My only hesitation on this is I think staff was right in what they did. But I understand Mr. Bailey's frustration in feeling he's been getting some curveballs from the city. And we're talking $50. I think the purpose of the reinspection fees is to get a project moving, and particularly with, I think it's more designed for landlords, as well as Augusta-centric residents, but I think it's really, we want to be able to get landlords who have been very, yes, some landlords, how about that? Some landlords So, I mean, I don't know. I feel that Mr. Bailey, I wish I knew, well, I guess it really isn't, it's immaterial to the case whether he's got a case for whether that fence should be there or not. So my feelings on that, I guess, really don't matter. I wish I knew more on it, but I guess it really doesn't matter. It seems a damn shame either way that he couldn't have that fence there. But perhaps there's very, very good reasons for it. I don't know.
So,
I want
we're right,
You want to change your,
Instead of $50, I think we should just cut in half to $25.
so motion, will you amend the motion?
cut the difference anyway.
Yes.
It's more of a principal matter anyhow. I'll re-amend that motion, make it 25.
So motion to, not rescind, but reduce, there we go,
To 25.
So it
to
would be a
25,
motion
the reinspection fee to 25.
It'd be a motion to approve the denial and to reduce to
Do we have to do two?
No, it could all be in one, right? Yeah, motion
That
to
would be a
approve.
motion by Alder Steuer, seconded by,
Alder Stevens?
Well, I made an
I have to
amendment.
redo it
I
and
made an
this is-
amendment.
The reason being is there was a time frame here, and if someone at staff said that, it's hearsay. We'll go by his word.
Yeah, I think if staff told him differently, he honestly believes he heard what he heard. So, there was a miscommunication somewhere, either staff somehow got things turned around, or he misunderstood, or somewhere there's a miscommunication, but I believe the miscommunication was an honest miscommunication. I don't think there's any malice on anybody's part here.
So what is,
So the motion is to accept the appeal and reduce the fine to $25. And it's made by Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Where do I pay the fine?
Clerk? Clerk's office?
Tomorrow?
Yeah. Or you could mail it in, or no?
this is.
When's
this-
it gonna take effect?
This is going to council.
Next week.
yeah,
Next
it
week.
goes to
So once
council.
it's approved by council.
Yep, this just goes to, oh, were you here at the beginning when I said that everything we do here is just a recommendation of council, they have the final authority?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so this is one thing that will go to council next Tuesday. Once it goes through that.
Then they'll notify me?
You could come to council and
Well,
speak
or
as
they,
well.
I mean, if he's agreeable to paying the 25, he doesn't, then we'd notify him after. Or
I don't know if we would notify him as to.
you could call,
You can call the clerk's office.
call the clerk's office.
Okay,
You can just mail it in, probably be the easiest thing.
okay. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry you guys had to sit through all that for $25. But, yeah. But thanks for, I think you did the right thing. I think you were more than generous. But it seems like there's some things I wish we need to look at how we can clean up some of this stuff so we don't have these kind of miscommunications. Mayor's office, I think there's a slight with Jared, no?
My feeling is that it should have gone to his alder first. There's a certain order of things, if you jump over that way, I don't know, that's just my thought.
Yeah.
My suggestion, if we're doing this cleanup, do they know ahead of time that we're doing cleanup?
Well, yes and no. Some of them know we're just calling or going and doing, like fences and stuff, you don't need to let them know you're doing the final. But when you observe that it was improperly installed, then we send them a note saying.
Then he got defensive.
In that notice, you say that we're just doing
Defensive,
a
he got
follow-up
defensive.
from your permit?
Yeah.
Like
It
you
says-
said, they notify,
it says we're
they know that right away.
Yeah, did the inspection, and it's not compliant.
Like, we apologize for our delay, but we're catching up on our work.
We're doing that with HVAC furnaces or other permits as well.
That's what
We
my
send
mom
them-
got that.
We're better to be upfront and honest, hey, we're 3
Absolutely.
years behind,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
we're here now, and this is the reason why.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move on.
Yeah.
But thank
Yes,
you,
thank you.
Yes. Number 10?
Are we on to 10?
Yes, sir.
Discussion with possible action on request by Alderbury, which reads, request a legal opinion from the State Department of Justice Office regarding walking quorums. Mayors that are legally a member of the city council and the practice of meeting individually with council members regarding upcoming business that the city council will be voting on, previously held at a protection and policy meeting until the response from DOJ was obtained. And the response from DOJ was? I don't think that was in the packet. I didn't.
It was right here.
Is it?
Yes, so
Oh, yeah.
DOJ has provided a response to Alder Weary and to the city. Copies
Oh, fine, was-
of
okay.
both are included in the packet. The Department of Justice gave general information as to what constitutes a walking quorum. However, they declined to give a formal opinion based on the limited amount of facts provided. So staff's recommendation is to receive and place on file.
So this is, they just basically through the state. So
They
we're
just
back.
kind of gave an explanation as to what a walking quorum was, but they did decline to give an opinion on the specific circumstance because they didn't have enough. to run their opinion.
And Alder Weary did, of course, have something on this, which his statement for the record is, he's just looking to answer, for the answer from the state DOJ and for the council mayor to adhere to the legal requirements put forth therein. So, we've got the response, and we can receive it and place it on file. There's nothing else to do with that, right? I mean,
No.
Motion, please.
motion by Alder Stevens, second by Alder Vanderleest. Anything, Alder Steuer?
No, I think this may come up again at some time, but I think for now,
Right, I think if anything,
mean-
it's, we would need to hone what we
to have
want
some
for our own
better,
practices, perhaps.
some better
if that's-
definition, because sometimes you wonder, you know, if I go out with Randy, we go over and have a soda pop somewhere.
So there are exceptions for
You know what I'm
social
saying?
gatherings, and the Attorney General does, or the Department of Justice did lay out kind of certain examples and what are exceptions and what kind of watch out for. They just didn't answer Alder Weary's specific inquiry
Right.
because they didn't have enough facts. But
Mhm.
so they do give a detailed analysis as to all the applicable laws. And obviously, we can't give blanket advice as instances come up and alders have questions. Obviously, the city attorney is ready to answer
There's really
those.
not a handbook of sorts saying, okay, there's 20 different possibilities of meetings.
Right, no.
There's nothing like that.
No.
So it makes it a little, you know,
There's
sometimes
a
you
s-
look over your shoulder like, well, wait a minute, I'm walking
Right.
with you across the
There's
bridge.
a set of laws and standards, and those are applied to the specific facts. So they do give good information, though, and
I
details.
suppose the only time is if somebody puts in a complaint. So,
And we have to thrash it through.
well, I guess for now I'm fine with that. But I'm just saying that it may come up again. So
Motion to receive.
I'll
and
make a
place
motion
on
to
file. It's already been done by
Oh,
Alder
okay.
Stevens and seconded by Alder
Just
Vanderleest.
vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. On to, was that 10? So now we're on to 11? Is that correct? Yep.
Correct. And, yes.
So, consideration with possible action on a request for Alder Weary, which reads, all requests to any city committee or commission, be it from an alderman, staff, or the public, shall be placed immediately on the next agenda of the said body. The request may be delayed from agenda upon agreement of both submitter and body chairman.
Celestine.
Yes?
So we had, so there's the two items, and I'll be addressing both Alder Weary and Alder Galvin's communication. So we had some conversation with senior staff to get a process together that I'd like to present to you now. So first, let's just begin with some basics. Who can place an item on an agenda? So staff can place an item. Alders can place an item through communication. And alders can receive requests from residents to place an item, but residents cannot place an item directly on an agenda.
Okay, that's been a bone of contention in the past, that there have been some alders who said they should be able to, or they have, or whatever. That's something we need to make clear.
So that is, actually Vanessa and I talked about it today, just to get clarification from when I was on council. Yeah, that the alder is the elected person, that person, the alder makes that, is a conduit through which
Right.
that action can take form in the form of a communication, an agenda item on the committee.
So if a citizen comes up to you, you tell him he needs to go through his or her alder.
Absolutely. Or any alder, I mean, it doesn't have to be, you know,
Mhm.
I could make a communication through Alder Vanderleest if I felt that my communication was more in keeping with his priorities. It doesn't have to be my representative.
Oh,
Indeed, at senior staff, we discussed that items will be placed on the next agenda. Alders, and we had some conversation about this, and I'll talk about it again when I discuss Alder Galvin's communication. Alders should check for their items through Civic Clerk. All you have to do is do a search to see where your items are. There's some more things I want to add to that, but I just need to float that up, that you have the ability to find out where your items are. Just go into Civic Clerk, search the agenda item, and you'll see whether or not it's been placed on the agenda that are published.
That's how that's done.
That are published. So I'll talk a little bit about that too.
Okay.
Communications will not be delayed. So if there's a communication that goes on that is made, and we'll discuss the various ways that, well, there's two ways that communications can happen, and then a few ways that items can be placed by alders on the agenda. That will not be delayed. So we will not be doing, well, you know, you and I can agree that we'll wait until October for this to happen. No, it should go on the agenda, and it should be discussed, and if there needs to be more work, then that should be floated up for the public to know about.
So everything will be put on the agenda
Post haste.
post haste, okay?
Yes.
I think one of the issues, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but there are times where I'll look at the agenda, you know, on a Friday, and it's not in there yet. You know, or, you know, you're trying to find it, and your meeting might be on Monday. So part of it's timeliness, that, and if you go to the city website, you can look at it, but when you go to Civic Clerk, there's times where you don't see it.
You mean
So-
on your board view?
Yeah, it'll say no data file.
Really?
Yeah, I
So
get that. So that's
that
kind of a
That is
issue.
something that, no, I'm
That should be an
just
IT
gonna
thing?
put this on my calendar.
So I think that's one of the questions,
an IT
because we don't
question.
have, there's times we don't have enough time to react for the fact that, hey, where's our communication? We're
That's an-
assuming that
that's-
it's on.
Well, and that's an IT question, because this is how it works behind the scenes. So we get the agenda, we publish to public, that means it goes on the website. We publish to board, that means the people who are authorized to get that agenda receive it. So it happens, we have to actually physically say publish to public, publish to board. So if you see it on the website, you should be able to see it on your board view.
You should or shouldn't?
Should.
You should, well, I don't.
Okay,
And
let
I'm
me-
just
let
saying,
me-
that's kind of a frustrating thing.
Let me ask that question of Mike.
That sounds like IT.
Yeah, that's an
Well,
IT question.
regardless, it's still, you know, it's not consistent.
It is not right.
It is not.
right. It is not working.
Okay, so I will figure that out, and then I will be able to follow up with, how would you like me to, and this is part of our process, how would you like me to follow up? Do you want me to come back next month and then talk about that? Do you want me to just communicate with Alder Stoyer?
With the IT problem,
Mhm.
I think, I don't know, I haven't had that IT problem. You could just,
Well, then maybe I'm alone.
Yeah, right, so-
I'll go on my tablet and I'll look for it, the agenda, and it's not there.
If you could have Mike-
So if I go to the city website, it generally will be there.
So let me
So it's kind of
have,
a,
so I will then communicate directly with Alder Stoyer about that particular issue and not bring that back to committee.
That's
Is that the
fine.
wishes of the committee?
right, yeah,
Okay.
because it really sounds like an IT problem, not a procedural problem, which is what we gotta fix.
But as far as, you know, with communications, though, I remember some time ago, you know, Alder Galvin, I think, brought this up too, but, you know, you're kind of putting the onus on us too, that if we put in the communication, we need to follow up on that. And there are times where it seems to fall through the cracks, and if we don't think about it for a while, it's like, what happened to that? So, and I know that Kevin Bonk, he, for a while, through their community development, what they would do is he would have a list of the communications. He did it within his department.
But if I may,
I'm just saying-
isn't that more with Alder, with the next item with Alder Galvin? Because this is specifically
Right.
just an initial communication.
Okay, we can talk
I will
about
address
that. We
that.
can-
So
we can
let's
address-
wrap this up and.
That's fine. I'm good with that.
So then, and I will get to that, Alder Stoyer. So how do items get placed on an agenda? So there are 4 ways. So you can give a communication to the clerk's office, either by filling out the form or by sending an email. You can make a late communication at city council. And, you can email a senior staff member to have a staff member place it on the agenda, or you can email the committee chair.
When you
Now-
say you, that's the alder.
That's the alders, yes, I'm only talking about alders.
Okay.
Now, here is something else that I think requires some education. Alders can make communications to standing committees. So that's, there are 5. PMP, INS, Parks, Finance and Personnel. The other committees are requests. The alders, those committees are where the business of the legislative body is really done. Those other committees are somewhat, there's a mixture.
More of a commission than a committee. you know,
Yes,
that's
for
a-
instance, Transit Commission.
Yeah.
Alders do not transit does not report back to the city council. Water Authority, same thing. We were talking about the zoning board of appeals, that is a
That's
standalone.
separate.
Right, exactly. So, yes,
Well, no, I'm glad you're clarifying that. Just, I think we've all heard that, but we need to hear it again.
How about the redevelopment authority?
No.
No.
they-
It's not a-
redevelopment authority is a little bit of a mixture, but yes, that's right.
Because I know they had the communication with, when they were gonna do for the Green Bay packaging, they had to make the approval in order for that to get done. And,
Right. But that was them coming to us, that wasn't a communication from us. to them.
From the
But I'm just saying, they have authority that
Yes.
is kinda untouchable.
Right, yeah.
Some of it is, and some of RDA's actions do report back to council, but some don't.
Right.
That is correct.
So
Alder
things
Johnson.
like Traffic Commission,
Mhm.
Sustainability Commission, those are all, who's they?
Right.
Like if they want to put on the agenda, who's they?
So so that's really interesting. They is Dave Hansen for traffic, sustainability, moi.
Okay, so it's up to staff,
It is, right.
not
It's-
up to the chair?
It could be up to the chair, but the chair are not, so for the chair of traffic, the chair of sustainability, those are residents. They're not employees and they're not alders. So you could absolutely, you could email the committee chair and say, hey, Seth Hoffmeister, can you put this on the Sustainability Commission agenda? And all Seth is gonna do, because he's not in control of the agenda, I am. He doesn't actually physically control it.
So
So
if
he
you
will have
don't
to
want
come
to
back
put
to me.
something on the agenda, hypothetically,
Right, say it again?
if hypothetically you don't want to put something on the agenda.
That is not, I would not do that, that is.
I know, but you could.
No.
Well,
See,
that was the request here.
That's
Because
what-
Alder Weary said that happened. He went to a committee and they refused to put.
Yeah,
his-
but I think that's more a committee, not staff.
That,
but-
so if you're talking about me as a staff person, I will always put the communication on the agenda.
Right, but correct me if I'm wrong, but
Right.
what you're suggesting is that it's a request when you're talking about a commission, so it's up to your discretion. Now, I can't imagine a scenario where you'd say no, but you could.
Right, you could.
Well, and that.
But then, like I said, I want to be really clear that the communications are really for the standing committees.
Mhm.
And this is still action, right? You're still elected, you're still the legislative body.
Mhm.
But you also have to understand that there are some commissions, committees, and boards where you have no ability to even make a request.
Okay.
So I guess, pardon my ignorance here, but let's say you have 5 standing committees and there's quite a few other committees and their agendas.
Oh, wait, though. Are we talking
Well-
initial? Right, go ahead, go. Never mind, go. Sorry.
My train came off.
5 committees.
So the 5 committees. So if the other committees that are not standing, the fact is that some of their agenda or some of their findings from their meetings will come to council.
Sometimes.
But not always.
Yeah, we don't know what the
Like
Board of
transit.
Appeals.
Like the Landmarks Commission, for example,
Yeah.
that's one
That
of
does
those.
not report out to council, that is correct.
Now, if a chair of a committee gets a communication from another alder and decides not to put that on the agenda, what is that alder's recourse?
So, Alder A, who's the chair of the committee, gets a communication from Alder B and basically high hands that communication system on putting it on? What is the recourse of Alder B? That, I don't know.
I think that's what Alder Weary has had problems with.
So,
As have others.
Alder B can submit it directly to the clerk.
then if it goes to the clerk, then the clerk. then this
Usually
is a-
we'll send it to the staff member
Right.
who manages.
We'll put it on.
Because I don't believe any committee chairs actually manage the agendas.
They do not.
No.
I do.
You
Well-
don't physically put anything in.
Right, if you receive a communication, you will then direct it to me and to Jamie, and then Jamie physically creates the agenda.
Oh, true, right. But
So that's what I meant
But
as far as
if
we
I
manage the
got
agenda.
from Jamie back, she sends it to me, because all I do is play with the order.
Yep,
Yeah, but if I said, no, not gonna do it, what happens?
So, if you remove an item from the agenda, that's interesting.
I think that's the issue that we're
okay.
up against.
So the recourse is to make that communication through, as a late communication at council. Then Chris tracks that, and we'll talk about tracking when I get to Alder Galvin's
Galvin.
communication.
Mhm.
And then that will get placed on the agenda. Now, the question, of course, is, well, what happens if the chair attempts to remove it again?
So,
Is it-
shouldn't we be bypassing a chair for communication, go right to clerk?
Right, but
Well-
if, but the, but if, but the,
You
but
don't
if that,
have to.
but if, a chair usually is given.
But the way you're talking about, if I as an alder sent you a chair, communication, you're the chair and you said no.
Right.
But if I went to clerk and submitted,
And they put it on, and I would see that as chair, because and I'd
Take it
say,
off.
nope.
then
Take
you
that.
shouldn't be able to.
Well,
I have a hard time with that.
what is staff gonna do if I say that? Are they gonna not,
And
are
what
they
gives
gonna
you the
ignore
right?
me?
The
Are they
Staff
gonna?
doesn't know,
Is your
so.
chair-
it
Well,
just-
no, I'd be telling
We would
staff.
know.
So for an example, with protection and policy, when there are communications submitted by other alders at council, that goes to Jamie. If you, in the clerk's office, she prepares the agenda, she reviews it with me. She then sends it to Alder Scannell for approval. Is this okay? Do you want to rework anything, move anything around? He says, let's move this here, this there, and we're good to go.
And I
so-
close my eyes.
So he ultimately approves the agenda, the form, and the order, and so forth before it gets published.
Right. So if a chair said, this item, we're not gonna handle.
Right, so in theory, there could be a communication from one alder that's made at council. Jamie puts it on the agenda, and Alder Scannell could say, nope, we're not hearing that, and directs Jamie to remove it.
So what
from the
happens
agenda.
after that?
Well,
I guess that's the question where
So
we're at.
what,
So
so
your question-
in
my
having a
question would
conversation
be-
with the mayor about this, the mayor feels very strongly that it's up to alders to have some input and ownership over these agenda items. And quite frankly, if an alder is going to, in many ways, I'm not sure that the staff can stop someone from doing that, right?
Right.
And this in many ways has to do with your legislative body practices and policies and rules. I think really that the chair who's going to remove it needs to communicate that to the person who's made the communication.
The reason for it too, maybe?
Well,
I mean-
okay, let's say, I say it's off, it's taken off by staff, and you report that to the alder. I said, I'm not handling that, whatever, I give whatever reasons, or don't whatever. And they still want it on. Is there recourse to do a committee of the whole?
That's a possibility. I mean,
That's, I was just thinking about that, they could
Yeah.
place it
Or
on
what can we
council
do so
agendas
that
and-
scenario doesn't happen?
well, there's also ethics issues.
Right.
I mean, you have your own way of disciplining each other.
But there have been some communications, and quite frankly, I think we should not have dealt with. When there were alders that played politics with city business, and I thought there were items that were inappropriate. And I was never in a position to do anything about it, or if I was, I think I went along. But I don't know anymore. I mean, if someone really, like that communication, about, if I would have been aware, the communication a few months back about renaming Spring Street to Alder Zima Street, if I realized what street that was, there's no way I would have voted to advance that
So
communication.
this is your opportunity too. If the communication is made, you know, with an email to a staff member, an email to a committee chair, that's harder. But if the communication is made either to the clerk's office before the meeting or at the meeting, you can vote not to accept the communication.
Communication, yeah. And if I'd have been aware, I would definitely have not accepted. I mean, that was just rank. It's Schmidt Street where he lives. Someone wanted, you know, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even know that.
I didn't either, so I thought the whole thing was weird, but at
Maybe I
the
should have said
time.
something, I did know that.
Yeah, oh, well,
So
if I'd have realized that, there's no way I would have.
I mean, you can
like
look
them-
at the face value of that and say, okay, this
Right.
is
Right
But
silly,
why-
it's silly.
Right,
Have
so
you
why
told
should that be a
us-
part of our city business? I would have.
I agree with that.
Right, you know,
I agree
but
with
so if an alder, but maybe there's just some conflict between the two alders or
Well,
whatever,
this-
and
If I
there
could
isn't
share,
that.
can I share something? This is
Certainly.
what Alder Weary mentioned. He said he recently requested an item be put on the GB Housing Authority agenda
Right,
and was told the chairman denied it.
that's correct.
He says, how in the heck is this good open government? An unelected official is telling residents they don't get to discuss their concern.
Right, because
So,
Right,
because
that's
it
what-
goes back to, he, as an alder, does not have the authority to put a communication for the Green Bay Housing Authority.
okay.
That's
So-
the
We're not
answer.
running
We-
into a situation where an alder's communication for a standing committee has been taken off. It's more of a situation that the alder was trying to put forth a committee to a body that
So-
is beyond the alder's authority.
Pardon my ignorance, just one quick other
Yeah,
question.
yeah, go ahead.
So with the 5 standing committees,
Mhm.
bam, no problem as far as communications. But the other ones, if I'm in the historical preservation and I might see something that I think is important, I'd like to get something on the agenda for a landmarks commission. Am I allowed to do that?
So, I don't want to say, you know, that you're disallowed from doing something, but the best way to handle that would be to be in communication with the
With the
chair. Or with Stephanie Schmutzer, who is, I'm sorry, Stephanie Hummel, who is the
Yes.
meeting manager, the staff member, staff liaison. So be in communication with them to see if this is.
See
this
if
is
that's
they can take up.
possible.
Yes.
I can see that, but I don't know if all the alders know that.
Well, the problem is that it was denied. Not that, I mean, he went through it. That wasn't an issue. The
The
issue
housing-
was it was denied.
But the housing authority, correct me if I'm wrong, is a totally legally
It is.
separated
It is.
entity.
Right, right.
It's
So
completely
separate-
separate
We don't
body.
get that.
That would be like
We don't-
submitting a communication as
To
an
the
alder
zoning board of
to,
appeals.
right, or
Right.
to the city of
Or the water
Right.
utility.
So I don't know who would be for,
Village.
Well,
Could
the
we
landmarks
invest
commission is a city,
a
it's
matrix,
in the
right?
city.
There's all the commissions, the
but
committees.
it's still not a,
and
I know it's not a
things
standing.
like the housing authority.
Thank you,
Yes.
Ryan. Now, if
Where
it's
we
out of our
have
jurisdiction, we
oversight.
can't do much about
Could-
it.
Yes, I can.
Is there a way to get something out to the alders about this? I think just a little sheet. This is what blah blah is allowed. I'd love to see it.
Yep, I'm writing
You
that
kind of
down.
see where we're going for.
How would you like that back?
Well-
just as a communication, or a email or,
Email?
Email.
Just email,
Put it in
nothing?
our,
Email.
our mailboxes for
Just
those
report,
things.
but nothing,
Yeah.
okay.
for mailboxes for those who want the snail mail.
Okay, no mail, we're not doing snail mail anymore.
Well, I mean,
No.
want paper.
Really? Because I get stuff from Public Works like 10 times a week.
I request that they do it digitally.
Yes, I know, that's a whole other thing. Okay, so, any other questions? I get the list, okay? I also have the issue that, for you, Alder Steuer, about what's going on with your inability to see something that you should be able to see in board view, which is weird.
Oh, that, right, that's fine,
That's
that's whatever.
Are you
But-
wearing the special goggles when you look?
Yeah.
Really? We get those?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
I just slapped the back of my
That
head.
is all I have for Alder Weary's
Okay.
communication.
And if there's an issue with the standing committee, that an alder's recourse is committee of the whole.
That is a recourse, and like, you have some abilities, I mean, you have.
Or ethics committee.
And ethics. and code
Ethics
of conduct.
committee, I mean, you can hold each.
Would that
other
fall in the
accountable.
ethics, under the guidelines? I don't know.
I'm not positive.
maybe that's
I
something
think
we look at when we
there's
look at the
general
ethics.
sweeping- Yeah.
It's
I
hard
would-
to give an answer on that right now. I'm sorry to be.
Yeah, no.
It's hard to give an answer on that right now because the ethics revisions that we're working on are pretty significant in terms of
Mhm.
revising what's already there. So
Hold off.
it's hard to be able to say yes or
And that's
no.
one
at
of the
this
things
point.
that
Right.
Vanessa mentioned that we're
Right.
working on to try and get in front of you, because it's
Right.
been
Can
quite
we-
some time.
Right, and when it does, maybe that's something we can take up.
But can we put in a request or make a motion to the fact that, it's for this, but to have information for the alders stating when, you had 4 lists of 4
How you
items
can get
of
it.
how you can do a communication. I
Absolutely.
understand all those and I've done all that, but to have that so that we can see that.
Yeah.
And then also what committees we can and cannot do that.
I will make sure that
I don't know if that.
And if that could be
English-wise.
provided for new alders, when we're working on packets for new alders, we could store that aside and
Even
put
the
that
ones that have
in
been around for a while.
with personnel, because
What's that?
personnel is putting together.
New packet?
Hmm?
Have you heard anything on the new packet?
Nope. Which goes into Alder Galvin's request.
Yeah.
So Steve, can I ask a question?
Yep.
When we submit late communications, there's been talk among some folks that the city actually incurs a fee when that happens. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate.
What
It's
is
not
that-
much.
What is that
They,
fee?
because late communications have to be published.
Published.
And so
Okay.
there's a publishing fee that Press Gazette and whatever
Would-
newspaper we.
With the referral though, I mean, just to piggyback on that, many times I'll give a late communication and it's partly to get it out there, so that folks can hear it, the citizens hear it, but would you say in a perfect form, as much as possible, that you'd like to have these communications in either to the department or to the clerk's office? I mean,
And
just,
it becomes part of the agenda if you make it early enough to Chris Keskey, the clerk, then it becomes upfront in the agenda.
because we often do quite a few late communications, and I'm guilty of that as well. So with that being said, is it kind of like, well, gee whiz, you should have done it earlier?
It's not, we're not talking about
It's-
5 figures difference, right?
No.
We're talking about 4. So it's up to you what you want to do. And I get that sometimes it makes sense to make a communication verbally, publicly, for the community to hear and see.
Well, I think that's part of the reason I do it, just not say, hey, I spoke on
understand
your
that.
behalf, and it's out there. All right, more fodder. to
Email
think
your
about.
communications about stop signs, proclamations and everything else. I don't know. Meaning that a stop sign,
Oh,
you
I
don't
know
need
say
to
about-
share that publicly, right?
All right, so, I don't know, Randy's not here.
Yeah, he'll be back in a second.
Should we,
I have a motion
Yeah,
for
what would
staff to provide alders a list of how to submit a communication and what committee and commission communications may be submitted to, and then
That was
whatever
my
action
motion.
does the committee then want to receive and place on file Alder Weary's request?
I
Well,
would
we
make-
actually had action, though.
Or is that action?
That is
Okay.
action
Well,
to
that's-
me,
Okay.
right?
so we're doing 2 things here, right?
No, just
No.
one, just the motion to have staff provide alders a list.
Okay, that's a motion.
Mhm.
So I made that motion.
Second.
Should we say all in favor?
So
Aye.
motion made by
Aye.
Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Stevens.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are we waiting for Randy?
You
Randy
have
will be
quorum
in.
still, so
We have
you don't
quorum.
have to.
All right.
So that motion passed unanimously.
On number 12?
Yes, 1 second. Yes.
Consideration of possible action on the request by Alder Galvin to the Protection Policy Committee to have a procedure for alders to be notified when positions and communications are going to be addressed at the committee level, which was held at the July 10th and July 8th, or June 10th and July 8th Protection Policy meeting.
So,
Celestine?
yep, to me, because we talked about all this as senior staff. So, once again, just to reiterate that alders can search for their communications on Civic Clerk. Department heads and staff, whoever's working on that agenda, really need to get approval from the agenda from the chairs. So for the 5 standing committees, that means alders. So that, what that does is it promotes communication about the agenda with the alders who are the chairs of the committee. And as I had said, the mayor really thinks that you are the legislative body and you have the responsibility as well as the privilege of being able to have some input into the agenda, so you should exercise that. Now, I do want to say that meeting managers and recording secretaries do keep track of agendas from communications from alders. So this is even for committees that may not be standing committees. They do keep track of these of these requests, these communications. Jamie and Chris Teskey keep track of it. Deanna DeBruler, who works with the law department, keeps track of the ones for like
Landmarks?
no, that's Stephanie Hummel.
The law department has a master list of communications that come in, mostly, I believe it's Lake Communications.
It's Lake Communications,
Lake
okay.
Communications.
So you have that? you keep
Yes,
that up.
yes, it's a nice Excel spreadsheet.
But
I
that's
believe it was
Lake
created by-
Communications.
Yes, that's just Lake Communications.
Right.
So, law department keeps track of those and follows up with department heads
Do those
periodically to
communications-
see where those
Yeah.
items are.
Those late communications that come in, if they're not a standing committee, are they given at all to the department, or to the heads of those
Absolutely.
committees?
So Lake Communications
And they
always
can-
have to go to a committee, for the committee to then refer it to staff or decide whatever
So they
the
decide.
committee wants to do with it.
Okay, so part of my reasoning is that, or well, where is it? You know, I put that out there and I don't see it anywhere. So is that part of the reason that you don't see it, is because the chair of that particular non-standing committee says, no, we don't want it?
Well, and as I said, it will be our practice to make sure that an agenda item gets placed on the next agenda. There's not going to be any delaying, right, no agreements, no side agreements. The other issue though too, which I think you're bringing up, Alder Stoyer, is that, before you all leave council meeting, I believe it is Attorney Chavez's requirement that a communication go someplace. So it's not going to be like, you know, here's a communication to have fruit served at all council meetings. That's not going to sit there. She's going to insist that that be given a place or assigned a place as soon as we can the next day. If it isn't given a place, you really should say where it should go in your communication.
We should, we shouldn't?
Yes, you
Should.
We should, we have.
Yes, yes, you should. And you know what? If you're wrong, then fine, we'll fix it and we will notify you that we have, so sorry, you're mistaken. The fruit communication should not have gone to protection policy, it should have gone to finance.
We're usually pretty good about that, I think.
Well, and it's not a big deal, I mean,
No.
But if I'm not mistaken, I believe that this communication actually was created after Alder Galvin had inquired with Improvement in Services what the status was
Right.
of a communication he put in over a year ago
Right.
about proactive sidewalk inspections. And it was referred to staff to bring back a plan, and then it was a year later, still hasn't been brought forward. Very similar to Alder Stevens here, when you asked where are we at with that new Alder orientation program, that was referred to staff. And so there are a lot of communications that are put in, get referred to staff for work, and never make their way back.
or we don't know the status, if there's a way that we could be kept up with the status of it.
So one thing that, like I said, a couple things that need to happen to make that situation go from, you know, horrible to the right way. First of all, there needs to be a date certain given, right? So if the staff member says, I need 2 months to come up with some sort of decision about a sidewalk program, then that will be on the agenda in 2 months. What the recording secretary, so what the senior staff members will do is to advise the recording secretaries to put that agenda item on a future agenda, which unfortunately you can't see. We can see behind the scenes. So we can put it in a draft agenda, so it's actually appearing. We say, okay, we will come back to you in 2 months' time. Boom, 2 months, we have put that agenda item on the agenda 2 months later.
Whose duty is that?
That is the recording secretary of the meeting manager.
Okay, I'm just saying that if, like Alder Galvin brought this up, and it's been over a year, you know, I don't think he put a time limit or constraint on that.
Right.
And if he would have said, I would like to have something in 3 months, does it behoove us to do that? That we
So-
should put some kind of time frame? I mean, why not?
You could absolutely say, I would like to hear back from this.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear this item back in
So I
3
have a
months.
question.
And even in the eventuality, if staff hasn't completed the task entirely,
least
it's still
tell
on
us
the
where we're
agenda.
at.
They
Right.
can report to the committee saying, this is the progress that I've made, I need
That would be
additional
huge.
time,
We need
but at
that.
least it keeps it afloat.
So we will not be doing that anymore, where somehow an item is discussed at committee, it needed more work, it goes into the ether, and nothing is reported back. We will put a date certain as to when staff will come back, and quite frankly, sometimes we're just not ready, right?
Well,
So
but
we'll come back
as
and
long as
say,
we understand
right,
that.
we're
Right,
not ready,
come back
right.
and more time.
The other half of that, though, is the communication. Like I said, department heads and staff should be talking to the chairs of the, especially the standing committees, and saying, this is what's going on, this is what's happening with the agenda, so that the chairs of the committee should be really versant in what is on the agenda and what is basically going forward in the future. So that an alder should be able to call the committee chair to say, hey, Alder Scannell, what happened to this item? Well, thanks for giving me a call, because I know after talking to the staff that we're going to discuss this in December.
I would never say.
You
Because you
would,
wouldn't say it as
in your own
eloquently.
way.
Yeah.
I think in the.
Alder, wait,
Excuse me.
Alder Stevens had a question?
Okay, so, like,
You're next.
Alder Johnson put in that request for new alders, but he didn't put a date on there. So what do we have to do now to find out where we're
So now,
currently doing
it's
that?
up to us to put a date on it if there isn't a date requested from the alder.
Which of the one?
Staff would do that?
Staff will do that.
Well, that would be,
Yeah.
We agreed to this at senior
Yeah.
staff, that
Okay.
we will give a date certain.
Okay.
If the alder doesn't, then we will.
Because I would assume you wanted something sooner than what we got now.
I think there's a lot of communications out there where that's the case.
if you put a date on it, I
And I
think
get
that would
staff
take
are
care of
busy,
a lot.
but
Yes, I think
That would take care of
and
a
if it's
lot.
not, seriously, if it's not working, if you're seeing that your communications disappear into the ether, I don't keep track of, I don't have that list, right? So I don't keep track of every item. Let me know so that I can address it to make sure that that items need to be brought back in a timely way.
So I think that was part of the discussion. If you refer something to staff, can that have a placeholder on the agenda?
So
For the
we're not
committee.
doing old business, new business. That it gets to be complicated in terms of how parliamentary procedure and Robert's rules work. So, but what we can do is say, we will bring this back in 3 months with an update or with a solution. No, old business, new business doesn't work.
Well, I'm happy with the date, putting a date on.
Right.
And
And
also-
it'd be good if the committee doesn't do it, which I think we gotta start getting in the habit of doing
Of
that.
doing
Mhm.
And staff ends up doing that, if that could be, that will be reported to the chair.
Yes.
Right, so then, yeah, okay, yep.
And just as I was doing, as I'm talking about this, you know, I'm trying to model the kind of interaction that you should be seeking. How would you like this item to come back to you? Do you want this item to be reported back at committee, or is an email sufficient? So you need to take some ownership too of how items come back, how pieces, especially if it's a piece of an item that needs to come back, then say, yep, staff, we would like this item to come back to committee, or could you please send an email? And then it's, like I said, it's the responsibility of the chair to make sure that all happens.
Yep. Alder Vanderleest?
About the sidewalks, you know, Walter Galvin talked about the sidewalks.
Mhm.
That's a pretty major undertaking as
It
far as,
is.
it's just like a road project, you know, how many roads they have to be assessed. I think that if the alters are concerned about certain sidewalk areas, they should bring it up to Department of Public Works if you got some areas that are bad. Because as far as, you know, I don't know if they got the staff to send out to check all the sidewalks within the city of Green Bay. But I
Well, that's
think
not what he's asking for, though. He's just asking for a policy.
Well, policy, okay, well, that would be fine. But what I'm saying is, if you know you got bad areas in your district, you should bring it up to the department, the alter should bring it up to the Department of Public Works. People will call in and say, yeah, I stumbled on this, and this is a bad, trees, in my district, basically if there's trees that are real close to the sidewalk, it'll pop them up. And they've replaced some of those, they've done some of that, and
Well, and I think you bring up the point of the art of making communication, right? Is this, are you making communication because you really indeed want something very large, very global, very philosophical, very process or policy oriented to be dealt with? Or is this a way to get something particular to be done? So that is the art of making communication, because everyone should know the difference. Do something big and global and philosophical, or something particular, like 3 sidewalks, 3 cakes need to get replaced by a park.
And another thing too is, they talked about it, during the wheel tax discussion when it was brought up, is the wheel tax gonna pay for the sidewalks? I don't think the wheel tax should
No,
be paying for
it's not.
sidewalks.
It's not.
It's just not a good idea. Most of the sidewalks are put in by, in other words, the citizen that owns the property in front of it is
It still is.
responsible. And so I think that was kind of off the table, where the wheel tax money is paying for the resurfacing and that type of thing, not sidewalks. And I think sidewalks are a total different issue, and I think that, if you want to be a good author, you got to kind of take a little look around your district to see what's going on in Brian's district. You get the complaints left and right, people on Broadway, in front of the Broadway district, there's some bad places on the road, where they put in, and I'm sure that, those are being talked about as well, in the same way in my district. We got some, Military Avenue's got some big, divots in the road, and you gotta call them in if you wanna get them fixed. So I think the sidewalks, that's a big discussion, if they're gonna,
And isn't that May, usually in May when they make their determinations, Public Works, as
They
far
do.
as?
They said they let a contract for sidewalk repair.
So the fact is, there are times where, and some citizens are reticent to do this now, where they'll complain about one sidewalk square cake.
Okay.
They'll come in and they'll say, oh, by the way, you gotta replace these 4 as well. And it's like, what? So that's usually a bit of a shock. So you got that, and then across the street looks like a war zone, and nobody looks at that. So those are the things that citizens get a little frustrated with.
For the sidewalk, if you replace a cake, then it becomes
Don't
a
say it.
cakewalk?
Don't
Bring
say
it back
it.
to the agenda item.
Don't say it.
So there's one other thing I have to offer to you, that Vanessa and I, and also working with Mike Ronick, we're still finalizing the process for committee-to-committee referrals. There is a way to do it in Civic Clerk, but it didn't seem like there was enough training given when we had discussed this like a year ago. So we are still finalizing that, and if you'd like to, I can come back to committee and report on committee-to-committee referrals. That's something that you should know about, because
Yeah.
sometimes something can't be handled in one committee, it needs to go to another.
Yep.
And so you can say, Alders could say, refer this to Finance Committee, right? Here at Protection and Policy. So it should then be very easy for the meeting manager to send that to the Finance Committee, but right now, for
That could
whatever
be
reason, it's
some
not.
procedures.
So for now, we would just,
Yeah, it's an IT thing.
for now, we just report that out, right? Well, that's what we've been doing.
Well,
but-
then the question is though, making sure that it
Good,
gets done.
okay.
Right.
So what kind of motion is proceed and?
It can be as general as to approve the procedures presented by staff.
Yep, to,
Okay.
motion to proceed as presented by staff.
Motion approved.
Motion to approve by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? There we go.
Is that it?
No, we have liquor violations from the police
Oh,
department
that's
for
right.
August 12th, 2019.
There were no actual liquor violations. There were 2 reports. One was criminal damage and disorderly conduct. There was a domestic violence situation at one establishment. The other one was called of alleged marijuana use. When the officers got there, they could smell marijuana, couldn't find anything. They accidentally wrote the bartender a citation for operating without a bartender's license because they didn't realize she was an agent on the actual license. So that was voided out.
Okay. Good job. Thank you.
Motion to receive and place in file.
Motion to receive and place on file by Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Report from the Water Utility Department regarding the lead pipe removal project. Everybody saw that in their packet, I hope? Yep. Motion to receive and place on file by Alder Stevens.
Second.
Second by Alder Vanderleest. Let's get the lead out. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That is received and placed on file. I believe.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn by Alder Steuer. Second by Alder Vanderleest. What should we do? What should we do? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
You promised.
Yep. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Well done. Appreciate it. Good work.
Seems like we don't meet for a while.